The hero admits that he is terribly tired of everything happening around him. He emphasizes that there are things only he can do, and it is precisely thanks to these actions that others receive help. The hero reflects on the tasks he has already had to complete. The young man reports that from now on he will change his life and start acting differently. He says that if he really needed an excuse for being late, it would most likely be because he simply overslept. The hero admits that maybe he overdid the punishment a bit or acted incorrectly altogether. The young man notices that he cannot hold back tears. He says he no longer wants to come to these meetings and decides to avoid them. X shares that last night he finally got enough sleep, so today he feels much better and has no desire to go anywhere at all. The girl warmly greets X and says hopefully that today everything will go as best as possible for him. The main heroine says that the guild master wants to talk to him, so she asks him to wait a little. The guild master is surprised to learn that the hero is actually a clumsy wizard who cannot even use simple magic. He asks why the hero suddenly disappeared without permission and why he did not show up for the important meeting. The master notes that it is still too early for the hero to set out on long journeys and become a true traveler. The man carefully looks at the hero's card. It says, Rank E, hero nicknamed Mage, a bit clumsy, 19 years old, height 160 centimeters, weight 45 kilograms, and his special skill is extending the duration of spells. He says that he will be punished by being assigned the lowest rank. F. The hero cannot believe such injustice. His rating was lowered immediately by 3 levels. X explains that he only needs to drip a drop of his blood on the card, and he will instantly become registered. The master quickly says that he needs to hurry and drip his blood on the card. This will help destroy everything he has worked on. He is surprised why the hero is just standing and doing nothing, and urges him to act immediately. X admits that he no longer has the strength to tolerate what is happening, and feels that the moment has finally come to make a choice. The hero admits that he is probably not born for an adventurous life. He sincerely thanks everyone for their care and support. The teacher did not understand why X wanted to leave and got angry, starting to shout at him. X notices that it is the first time he sees such an emotion on the master's face. However, he immediately adds that he is not interested in it at all. The leader of the strongest zombie clan, Pans, sincerely rejoices that X is no longer with them. He understands that now, with him gone, becoming a member of the Adventurers Guild will not be so easy. In his thoughts, Pans returns to the past, where in the guild beside him was a man who possessed only the most accessible, weak magic. The girl addresses the hero and asks him to stop, reminding him that there are still unfinished tasks ahead. X says that he has already left the guild. The young man sighs and admits that probably only he here can allow himself to cry, although he is not sure about that himself. He quietly says that he had time to cry yesterday, so it is better not to delay it any longer. Hans notices that now the hero has enough courage to behave so boldly. X emphasizes that none of those present understood anything. He explains that during solo tasks they pay half more, and it is more profitable, but he is not here for that. The girl informs that these taxes were introduced by the local feudal lord, who is also the forest protector and former head of the guild. The hero nods and asks her to voice all the conditions and how much reward can be received aloud. The girl notices that these 3 tasks look quite difficult, and none of those present dare to accept them. The feudal lord asked to repair a magical artifact that belonged to his chambermaid. The forest guardian had to go on a patrol to protect the forest from dangers. And the former guild leader was given the task to keep order and watch over the tavern for a month. The girl says that for completing these tasks, one can receive a reward, 7 small silver coins. Hans understands that even if he is unable to fulfill these conditions, he still must accept these offers. Axe explains that this is a kind of payment for lunch. Pants sadly admits that receiving such orders is very humiliating for him. The hero understood that such a reward was worthless. He confessed that he belonged to rank E adventurers, but this reward was completely unsuitable for his level. X adds that these 3 tasks are special for him. They will be the last in his life as an adventurer. He assures that as soon as he completes them, he will end his journey and never return to the adventuring life. The hero utters the spell Ice Sphere and begins to repair the thing that once belonged to the servant of the local lord. After a few tense minutes, he informs everyone that the magical restoration has been successfully completed. X notices that the salary has long been spent, but estimates that the light will last for about a month. Despite this, he does not stop, leaving the light on in every room and continuing to work further. X notes that this place is really large, and there is a lot of interesting activity to be found here. He admits that he is very tired of his work. The hero thinks about how exactly to use the materials to create a portable sphere of wind and ice. He considers whether a well-tuned turbine can help spin this sphere. The young man finished the work and felt true relief and satisfaction, but just as everything was done, he suddenly felt a strange tingling in his heart. X remembered that he had been haunted by a strange, anxious feeling, and it did not fail him. Viscount readily announced that it was necessary to make as many as 100 such jars. The hero thanked for the offer, but was forced to refuse and sincerely apologized. The Viscount insults the young man, throwing in his face that he is a worthless mage, but the hero confidently replies that he will no longer allow himself to be humiliated. For the past 5 years, too much has been demanded of him, forcing him to do what he could not. Now he cannot even imagine what it is like to simply fall asleep peacefully. The hero confidently says that he will stick to his decision and will not back down from it. Redley warns, if the hero's answer does not satisfy him, he will order his execution without hesitation. The Viscount orders the hero to apologize, confident that his threats will make the boy obey. X admits that he no longer wishes to stay in this job. The hero sincerely rejoices in his success, feeling a true uplift and pride in the achieved goal. X looks anxiously at Vi and asks if everything is all right with him, because he notices that Vi is worried about something. The Viscount says displeased that the main hero is not gifted at all and possesses only the simplest spells. He orders that this time the hero bring him more money than before. Redley notes that this issue should have been addressed at the very beginning. He advises finding someone else who can help, as he himself has long stopped taking on such matters. X reports that he has fulfilled the request of the Viscounts. He adds that now he is no longer here. The hero frankly admits that he is tired of responding to personal requests. It is too exhausting for him. He notices that old acquaintances from the Forest Guard have long stopped visiting, as they have passed their duties to new people. X adds that he has been engaged in this craft for about 5 years. He says that collecting magical stones becomes harder every year because the work increases, and many additional tasks have to be done. X aimed at the Orc King and cast a fireball spell. He noticed that the Orc King paid attention to him, but quickly reacted and attacked first. The hero suspects that the Orc King was confident. Fireballs were not scary to him at all. The young man confidently says that his fire will never go out. He emphasizes that his magic is special because the flame lasts very long. The hero confidently says that he becomes stronger every day, but suddenly, the unexpected appearance of someone makes him wary. X suddenly feels a sharp pain. The shadow wolf unexpectedly bites him. He is overwhelmed by shock and confusion as X realizes this happened only because of his own carelessness. The hero pushes away the dark figure trying to attack him and quickly casts a spell that stuns the opponent. The wolf flees, but the hero notices. The girl managed to bite him hard. He admits that the wolf was truly dangerous and could have seriously wounded him. The hero understands that he did not completely defeat the enemy, but still managed to strike him with lightning. The hero notes that after taking mana potion, his appetite significantly increases. He wants to enjoy something tasty. Reviewing the day's results, he remembered. Today he managed to defeat 1 Orc King, 8 Shadow Wolves, 15 Orcs, and 2 Goblins. During this time, he used 1 healing tincture and 7 mana potions. X notices that there have been far fewer monsters recently, so they no longer need a supervisor. The young man sincerely thanks them for supporting and helping him all these 5 years. He notes that for him the main thing is not how many monsters are left, although there are significantly fewer of them, but that finally there is an opportunity to sleep in his own bed. X rejoiced, for finally the moment had come when he could rest and relax. He sees a bite mark on his leg, his pants torn. The hero becomes upset and contemplates how to act next. X tries to sew his pants with a lucky needle, hoping everything will turn out for the best. However, something goes wrong, and instead of fixing the tear, he only made the situation worse. The hero decides to cut off the torn pants, and as soon as he gets the chance, he promised himself to definitely buy new ones. X receives a final request from the guildmaster. For the next month, he needs to take care of the tavern and ensure that order prevails in the establishment. The man orders the hero to get to work even before the place opens. The former guildmaster is a weary old man who still considers himself important. The hero cleans his home using magic. He summons a fireball to burn the trash, creates an ice ball to cool the rooms, and uses a water pillar to wash the floor. X admitted that he was tired after the day because he had been using elemental magic all the time. Especially exhausting were the spells related to space expansion. The man asks the hero why he came late today. He says that this time there will be no punishments, but he will not be paid either. X only nods in response, and the guildmaster laughs loudly and says that next month he better not be late anymore. The hero smiles sincerely and says that losing is a great experience. X rejoiced that now he does not have to redo all the work. The guildmaster advised to record this violation in the report because it really was the hero's mistake. The hero says that he has already completed 3 tasks. The girl says that the task is completed. The former anxer sincerely thanks her for the help. The chains that held the hero finally broke. The hero smiles as he leaves the building and loudly declares that the task is completed. X sadly admits that the life of an adventurer is true hell, and it seems as if you are just a slave. Finally, X became free, and from now on he awaits a peaceful and joyful life. The hero rejoices at the beautiful morning. He deeply breathes in the fresh air and looks with admiration as the sun rises above the horizon. X shared that he had long thought about this, and now he finally has both the time and the money to accomplish his plan. The young man sincerely rejoices that he has finally become free. He introduces himself as X. The hero says that he is a mage and possesses only elemental magic. The hero shares a story about his special powers. The flame he ignites never goes out, and the ice created by his hand remains strong and does not melt even after a month. He says that his magic lasts longer than usual. X recalls that he has money with him, since he has not yet spent it on purchases, and at this time he feels a pleasant aroma in the air. The boy happily points to the counter, where delicious shashliks are neatly laid out. He says that he has never before had the chance to try such genuine delicacies. The hero is happy because now he has the chance to enjoy tasty dishes for the first time in his life. Viscount Roderick emphasizes that the hero can only use elemental magic. He does not like that the hero rejects his support every time. The young man nods affirmatively, agreeing with Vigraph and showing that he fully shares his point of view. Roderick asks the name of the commoner being discussed. The servant Isman replies that his name is Axe. The Viscount ordered that this man not be allowed to leave his lands and asked that he no longer be taken into service. Iceman assured that he would carry this out as soon as possible. The man smiles and says that he is looking forward to the moment when this man himself will ask him for work. The Viscount notes that now he must master modesty and adds that he has already explained everything about pain. At this time, the servant notices a strange device standing before him and asks what it is for. Roderick shares a story about how a mage crafted a small device by combining the power of ice and wind. The man is genuinely surprised. He felt coolness and a light, icy breath, which he did not expect to see from a novice. Iceman proudly said that he felt this was exactly the device they needed. The Viscount immediately suggested taking it to the kitchen. He also admitted that he initially planned to make about 200 such things, but the craftsman who was supposed to do it simply ran away and did not finish the work. The Viscount asks with surprise what happened and begins to inquire about the kitchen. Iceman notices that water is no longer flowing into the tank. The man replies that the entire mechanism was made by the same magician, so it is not surprising that there is no water now. He suggests inviting another mage or using the grimoire if it turns out to be cheaper. Iceman agrees, as even then the result will be better than what Axe could have done. The hero eagerly tastes the delicacy, and his face immediately lights up with genuine joy. This dish gives him true pleasure. The young man admitted that he could not even remember the last time he ate such delicious food. He was sincerely happy that he finally left his old job. The hero feels a strong desire to eat more, but understands that if he does not stop, he will feel sick from overeating. He notes that years of hard work have not passed without a trace. His body is no longer as strong as it once was. Axe notices with surprise that even one bite turned out to be unexpectedly filling and completely satisfied him. Another character asks if he plans to eat anything else. The hero extends a skewer with shashlik to the boy with ears, inviting him to have some. X extends food to the boy and points at it, indicating that it is for him. He nervously warns that one should eat more slowly, otherwise it can harm the stomach. The boy sincerely thanks the hero and admits that he hasn't eaten meat for half a year. X remembers that being an orphan, he perfectly understands the value of treats like meat. The hero promises, when they meet again, he will definitely treat his interlocutor to something tasty. He says that he likes living without work, although he does not yet feel true peace and dreams of living as he wishes. The young man wonders what lies ahead and admits. Although he needs nothing, he very much desires to spend money on his own whims. He sees how much the surrounding world has changed, and this makes his head spin a little. But the hero still decides that he will spend his money, even though he has not bought anything yet. X understands that he now very much needs support and time to restore his strength. They give him a pillow specially made for relaxation and emphasize how comfortable it is. The hero, with joy on his face, hugs a soft pillow and enjoys its pleasant softness. The young man gladly sank into the soft pillow, enjoying its tenderness. The hero sincerely admits that he dreams of taking her home with him. He holds the pillow tightly because at this moment he feels true happiness. The girl asks the hero in surprise if it is really him. The girl confirmed that it was indeed him. X replied that he just wanted to look at the pillow. The woman notes that her daughter will find happiness when there is someone beside her who admires and values her. X says he was only checking the quality of the item. The hero responds by explaining, he touched the product and accidentally dirtied it, so now he will have to buy this item. The woman explained that this is only an exhibition sample and it is not for sale. The girl expresses her idea on how to solve this situation. X thanked for such an offer but cautiously declined. The girl enthusiastically noticed that the hero was very nice. The girl approaches the hero and asks for help cleaning the barrel of water. She explains that she turned to the guild, but they did not even want to listen to her request. The hero reflects that because of people's unusual requests, he started having troubles, and now he has decided not to take on any requests anymore. He notes that although the girl often jokes with sarcasm, she always understands when to stop. She sincerely thanks the hero for listening to her attentively. The woman explains that the questionnaire can be sent to the guild later. The hero finally firmly decided. From now on, he is no longer an adventurer and will no longer participate in any tasks. Meanwhile, in the estate of the Viscounts, Eisman stands and thoughtfully looks at the jug. The Iceman notices a crack on the jug and wonders why it happened. He asks carefully, as he had definitely applied the magic exactly as instructed. The Class A wizard noticed that when he tried again, everything went easily and without difficulty. He explained that he did not intend to damage the barrel. His goal was only to attach the ball to the surface. The mage was puzzled because, as he claimed, such magic was unknown to him. Eisman admits that he never even imagined the unique magic hidden in Axe. Now he cannot imagine his life without this convenient jug. He suggests bringing another barrel of water so everyone can rest a bit. The hero immediately agrees, considering it a really good idea. When the light goes out, the servant immediately notices it and thinks that X is behind it again. From this moment, the butler's suffering only begins. The hero confidently says no and firmly stands by his decision. The woman continued to smile and asked for something else. This time X gathered his thoughts and confidently refused, saying no. The girl offers to thank the hero with a slime-shaped pillow, although she could have paid with money. The hero notices that such a pillow costs 5 silver coins and considers it quite expensive. Two small creatures, one looks like a demon and the other like an angel, are fiercely arguing with each other. The angel tries to convince that the hero should work a little. It will take only 5 minutes, but he will get the pillow for free. The demon is against this. He says that working makes no sense at all. The girl advises the hero to take a bath and insists that he should not refuse. She explained that this product is very popular and in great demand. X immediately understood. If he does not make a decision now, he will lose the chance to get this item. X strongly desires to get this pillow. He convinces that it is not some important matter, just a small friendly favor. Finally, the boy agrees. The aunt does not hide her admiration. She really likes this young man. She even calls him cute. Smiling, the aunt asks if he really wants to become her son-in-law. She shared that her daughter also admires this hero. X was glad to see a happy girl. Moreover, he realized that the pillow for tears now definitely belongs to him. The hero summons magical flames and throws a strong spell at the enemies. A fireball flies straight at them. The girl is surprised to learn that everything can last only a year and asks if there is a chance it will take more time. X pondered why he was even taught this and admitted to himself that he probably could not do the same thing twice. At that moment, the aunt says that someone has come to visit them. The girl gladly greets the hero and warmly calls him brother. The aunt explained that, thanks to Sion, they had the opportunity to use the bathroom. She thanked him from the bottom of her heart for the help. Lena honestly reveals her feelings to X. X asks the girl not to speak like that anymore, at least until she grows up. Lena smiled and said that she has already grown up and is now mature enough. The hero thought that if she said such things in the presence of others, the orcs might decide to eat her. The girl says that if he no longer wishes to be an adventurer, he can use her magic and find a job with her aunt. The hero confidently declares that he has made the final decision to never work again. Anna sincerely apologized and said that now she truly understands him. The girl says she will no longer make such proposals. Lena runs up to her friends, gently hugs them, and quietly says to the young man, "Don't worry, everything will be fine." X feels how the care of friends gives him true warmth in his soul. He sincerely thanks them for their support and says that he is already fine. The young man sincerely thanks them for this day. The aunt smiles in response and says that they are always ready to support him, and the girl reminds the hero that if he encounters difficulties, he can turn to his friends for help. The boy asks his aunt if she knows anything about the ice ball. In response, the aunt says that only people with high status can have such a magical ball. X explains that this is a ball that does not melt throughout the entire year. The boy gives this ball as another pleasant surprise. The girls admire each other with enthusiasm and pride. The girl pondered and quietly asked herself why no one approaches her. This person turned out to be the very same X. The hero, with a slight sadness in his voice, notes that now falling asleep has become even more pleasant than before. He notes that with the new pillow he sleeps much better and can now rest for more than 3 hours a day. The hero is glad to have left the Adventurers Guild, but at the same time is already beginning to feel hungry. The girl with little ears cheerfully greets the hero. On the table stands food for slimes, which costs 10 silver coins. It is not very useful, but already fully ready for use. The girl suddenly says that she wants the hero to pay for her. X is sincerely surprised by such a request. The waitress froze in confusion when she realized that the real hero decided to have lunch in their cafe. She notes that X finally agreed to go to the restaurant to eat. The girl unfolds the menu and offers the hero to choose something to his taste. He nods in response, adding that if something catches his attention, he will call her himself. The hero hesitates about what to order, so he asks his friend for advice on choosing from the menu. The waiter smiles kindly, names the dish of the day, and says that the hero's order is already ready and waiting for him. X always feels true joy when tasting his favorite dishes. The girl notices that gentle warmth emanates from the hero, and tears of happiness appear in his eyes. The waitress points out that touching X, she feels warmth from him, and tears appear in his eyes. Another character agrees and adds that he noticed it too. The hero notices that the dish seems ordinary, but the taste has an amazing harmony of acidity and mana. X is glad that now he can avoid eating tasteless food and sincerely thanks for this opportunity. The hero smiles and says that he really liked the dish. It was delicious. The girl cheerfully asks if he can find a moment for her and looks at him gently, reminding him that she is his younger sister. X reports that she no longer works there. She suggests acting together since now both have freedom. The boy says that he is tired of working and no longer wants to do it. He also admits that he wants to take a walk and distract himself a bit before returning home. The hero sincerely says that the pain is so strong that it is even difficult for him to stand up. Another girl approaches the hero and asks what is happening here and what happened. X notices that she has a pleasant scent. The girl asks if he is okay. The boy apologizes and says that the effect of his magic enhancement has already ended, and this often happens to him. He shares that he is able to use elemental magic, enhancing it and helping others. The hero says that his special magic can increase strength, endurance, speed, intelligence, and even increase mana and energy reserves. Each of these parameters increases by 1 unit. She asked if the main hero already feels better. As a doctor, she was very exhausted after work. The girl admitted that she was very worried about him and apologized. X offered to thank her for the rescue and promised to cast a spell that would make her not feel tired for a whole month. The girl thought that this was really a very generous offer on his part. She inquired who he was and what abilities he possessed. The girl was surprised when she learned that the hero could only use basic magic for beginners. Smiling happily, the heroine exclaimed that now she would handle everything herself. The girl hurried to finish her business. X thought that he only provided support to members of his guild, but the girl did not understand that her tirelessness would last for her only 1 month. This group is considered the most powerful among the entire guild, and Pan was glad to have gotten a little more time. This is true luck for him. Another mage noted that a true adventurer must have not only courage but also intelligence. The girl examines the item with interest through a magnifying glass given to her by the sorcerer. The girl cannot contain her joy over their victory and enthusiastically calls her friends the true heroes of this month. She proudly recalls all their achievements: victory over the Orc King, the Man-Eater, the Shadow Wolf, and many other monsters. The girl asked how they managed to defeat those monsters. Panas only smiled mysteriously and said that this would remain their secret for now. The hero explains that they are only taking the magic stone from the demon, whom the forester has already defeated. He explains that everything succeeded thanks to a mysterious boy who turned out to be extraordinarily strong. The host decides to treat everyone to a drink because they earned well this month, and one of the mages unexpectedly admits that he is very tired, thanks for the offer, but refuses to celebrate. The main hero wonders why he himself is also not feeling very well. He admits that lately he often feels tired and has not felt that former strength in himself for a long time. Another character agrees, acknowledging that the hero is right. The hero thinks and notes that without that sorcerer they will not manage. Then he turns to the girl with a request, "Can we talk?" The man tells the girl that X needs to be returned and his rank raised. The man notes that X enhanced the hero's abilities and also suggests they just rest because they still remain the strongest among all adventurers. He notices that to continue the matter, they lack X. The hero sadly says that today was supposed to be the last shining day for their team. The hero says that he has already eaten and walked well around the city. Now he only wants peace in his room, but it is too noisy in front of the hotel. The boy says he is not looking for extra troubles, so he decides to go somewhere else. Suddenly, someone asks if the girl's bear is real. The girl gently presses the soft bear to herself, but suddenly realizes that it is actually Ryuka. Ryuka notices that X is delayed. X explains that she wanted to visit him, but did not enter the hotel because she felt the attentive gazes of people around her. It seems she felt uncomfortable with this attention, so she decided to wait somewhere nearby. X draws attention to how shy the girl is and begins to wonder how long she has been here. Ryuka is sitting in a small cafe, Silent Cat, and asks why the hero broke the magical contract. She notes that without this contract, everything could become seriously complicated, as it was the contract that allowed her to manage the sewing factory where living dolls work. The hero openly says that he quit his job and sincerely apologizes for it. She inquires whether he really intends to leave somewhere. Ryuka is surprised when she learns that the hero actually had no plans to leave the city. Reika approved the hero's choice and fully agreed with his decision. The bear apologizes to the hero for hitting him earlier. Then the strange bear sincerely thanks him for the help and calls the hero his friend. The bear who could talk had long been using his powers to strengthen the buff, but when the buff's effect ended, he could no longer speak. The girl gratefully thanked the hero for his help. Ryuka explains that when the hero is not around, the mad bear becomes completely uncontrollable. The bear also emphasizes that he trusts the hero and counts on him. The boy tells the girl how he was once expelled from the guild. X says that Ryuka was very worried about him. He notes that she has changed, as if she has become a completely different person. The hero adds that even Ryukai said she would help him come to his senses. The ex-boyfriend sincerely apologizes to the girl and offers to walk her home. He looks at Ryuki with admiration, thinking that she is as beautiful and gentle as an exquisite doll. The girl happily greets the hero. X and Ryuka stood side by side, looking around confusedly, not understanding what was happening at all. He notices that in the middle of the day, there are two beautiful girls in his room. The girl comes with wonderful news. He has already been approved for rank, as she also adds that next month he was promised a promotion to rank B. The hero says that he is no longer an adventurer and admits that he previously only had the lowest rank, F. The girl explained that the guild came up with a special trial for the hero so that he would learn to overcome obstacles and become stronger. She announces that from now on the stakes are rising and the guild will no longer take work for poor people. The girl explains that from this moment, they will only perform tasks that bring great profit. She sincerely rejoices that the hero has finally come to the guild. Smiling, the girl jokingly asks if he will invite her on a date. The hero only sighs sadly in response, because he currently has absolutely no free time for that. X looks at Ryuk and realizes that he is okay. The hero says that he has changed, and now has something very important to say. The bear, who suddenly spoke, assured that the boy still would not be able to hear the girl, regardless of what she says now. X understands that the bear just voiced his thoughts aloud. The girl confidently says that it was the toy itself that spoke in its own words. The magical bear explains that mages are extremely rare, so everyone treats them with special interest. He adds that the guild receives a commission from cooperation with partners and uses these funds for its own needs. The hero asks in surprise if this is true. He cannot believe that his teacher is a bear whose intelligence level is only 1 unit above normal. The bear says that first the guild must apologize for its behavior. The hero notices with relief that he has finally returned home. Ryuka reminds him not to forget to thank the crazy bear for the support. X sincerely thanked for the support. In response, the bear briefly said, "Call me Kumakichi." The boy addresses Ryuka and asks if she was the one who told Kumakichi about the guild's task. He feels calmer, The hero sincerely thanks the girl for the help and rescue. The boys sat in a restaurant together with Ryuka, Kumakichi, Lena, and her aunt, sharing memories of how he once had many true friends. The girl said that this was exactly the reason the hero refused to accept the offer. She said that recently there have been more and more reports of failed tasks, and none of the guild members have returned. The hero looks around confusedly, not understanding what is happening. He clearly feels the end of the guild is near. X notices that Kumakichi is very cute and fluffy. The hero admits that he is already tired of endless quarrels with the administrators. He asks what Ryuki's workshop looks like and how it works. He explains that the work in the workshop is completely different if there are automatic dolls there. The hero admits that he was worried whether Ryuka would complete the order on time. X cannot understand why Ryuki's face looks so unusual. The girl nods and says that she has heard about this before. She admits that if she makes them work, she will look like a real evil heroine. The girl insists that her teddy bear is completely different. At that moment, Kumakichi asks X to stay close to him and not to leave. Reika says that she is well aware of how important a person X is and how useful he is to everyone. However, the workshop will be able to cope with its work only when it slows down a bit. She also reassures. Even without him, the world will not stop, so it is not worth taking on too many responsibilities. She invites the hero to rest a little. The hero accepts her offer and sincerely thanks the girl. The girl understood that the hero finally understood everything. She said that it was time for her to return. The hero thanked her for everything and saw her home. Another girl apologized and explained that Mr. X left the job a few days ago. The former guildmaster asks in surprise why the boy decided to leave and why he was the last to find out about it. The hero laments with sadness that due to all the difficulties he had to face, he spoiled all the delicious food in his restaurant. Now he does not know if another hero will blame him for being fired. He firmly says that if something serious happens, he will take full responsibility until the very end, no matter what. He also advises to carefully review all the documents once again. The girl reminds that the former guildmaster was a true expert in his field. The girl looks carefully at the document, and the man asks her if everything is all right and what happened. She explains that this application was rejected, so the hero no longer has a valid status, and the guild is no longer responsible for his actions. The former guildmaster is outraged and says that this is unfair. The man wonders who will now take Axis's place after his resignation. He also notes that they now have new debts. The girl thanks the hero for working diligently. The heroes return after completing the task, and the girl immediately realizes that the mission ended in failure. The young man notices with surprise that everything around seems very strange. The hero explains, the enemy they had to face today is much stronger than those they were already used to. Now fighting has become much harder than it was just a few days ago. The girl says that this is already the 9th failure this month. Last year there were as many failures in the entire year, and now only in 3 days. She notes that people who have not experienced defeats often think that the enemy before them is too strong. The guildmaster sees that the heroes have started to retreat and asks them what happened. One of the heroes asks to speak privately and admits that he has not been feeling well lately. He notices that in this guild, the strongest is considered the team named Zambai. The hero says that today is an unusual day and declares that he intends to reprimand all the adventurers. The man is confident. Once they feel it for the first time, they will no longer be stopped. They will want more and more. Every day the guildmaster reminds that adventurers must be vigilant and always decide independently how to act in any circumstances. The head of the guild addresses the adventurers and asks them to pack their things because it is time to move forward. The adventurers thank him for the sincere words that inspired them to new achievements. The secret is revealed during an urgent meeting in the tavern. The hero excitedly reports that A promised to give him even more power. The girl notices that without a real fight, the enhancement has no value. She emphasizes that some have already experienced this firsthand. The mage insists that the novice should not invent anything, just obey him and follow all instructions. Meanwhile, the girl tells everyone who wants to get a boost, get in line, and she will cast the necessary buff on each one. She addresses Mara, known for her 15 magical abilities. Mara sincerely thanks the girl for her help. The girl responds by noting that Mara is indeed very strong. She easily uses powerful elemental spells, barely spending any magic. One of the characters greets everyone present and admits that he also needs to recharge a bit. Achai encourages him, agreeing that such work really requires a lot of strength. The hero is surprised to realize that all his enhancement powers have already disappeared. The girl asks in surprise what happened. She is told that she is too weak to be a true sorceress. I said that the enhancement will last only 10 minutes. The mage says that so many enhancements were cast on X that they would last for a whole month. Mara admits that when she does not use enhancement magic, any task becomes much harder for her. The girl explains that when she does not enhance her magic, her power becomes as weak as a child's. Therefore, she has to drink potions to regain her strength. It can be said more simply, without enhancement, they are no longer able to work the old way. Aiz considers this impossible, as she has studied magic all her life. Moreover, the enhancement lasts only about 10 minutes. The girl sighs sadly and says that now they have no chance to return to the level where they were before. Another girl suggested inviting an additional buffmaster, since their enhancements last only 10 minutes. The hero wonders if it is possible that X is truly special and capable of something amazing. Mara says that X is especially needed by them right now. She remembers how he was expelled, but sincerely hopes they can bring him back to them. He agrees that this is indeed the right next step. The girl explained that the boy standing next to her told them to apologize. Then the guild leader asked who exactly he was supposed to apologize to. The girl asks the heroes to go and apologize to X. The hero suddenly realizes that standing before him is the very powerful sorcerer they had heard about earlier. The aunt said she needs to sharpen her knives, and for that, it will cost about 10,000. She also warned that she will no longer carry out any assignments. The young man recalls how he always obeyed orders before and never doubted them. Now he rejects every order, agreeing with nothing anymore. He thinks the world will do just fine without him. The girl looks at the hero in surprise and, smiling ironically, calls him a failed sorcerer. The hero notices Team 1B. This is the most famous team in the city, known to everyone here. Pan reminded X that he should behave more politely with those he has worked with before. He sees how the hero looks at him boldly and stubbornly. X agrees that he used to lack emotions, and now he himself does not know how to react to such words. The boy addresses the Pans with a request to apologize. Pan cannot understand what is expected of him, while X persistently asks him to apologize. Pan asks in surprise if the hero is in his right mind, and angrily warns that he might tear him to pieces. X says that a true traveler must always be ready to draw a sword or use magic if circumstances require it. After these words, he utters the spell Ice Amulet. Pan jokingly threatened that if he started teasing, he would cut off pieces of him. However, he was sincerely surprised by X's actions and asked what exactly he had done. The wizard grimaced in pain and noticed that the sword has still remained in him for a whole month. He, surprised, asked why this sword was so stuck and seemed to have grown into the body, as if frozen. The third character openly admits that he is attracted to crimes. He also notes that for a young mage, such an amount of money seems enormous. X recounts how Pan attacked him. He explains that he did not want to harm Pan, so he had to step back further to force the enemies to retreat. He anxiously warns that if he tries even harder, something might go wrong. The sister came along with other heroes, and they immediately noticed that attacking one person with 3 is unfair. For the first time, the hero notices that a restaurant manager is standing before him. The manager, hearing a familiar voice, raises his eyebrows in surprise, and the waitress, recognizing the hero, smiles happily. The manager accuses Pans of behaving like a coward and suspiciously asks if he just intends to hide. Then he points out that something must be done first, and only then talk. The hero reminds that the 3rd day after the deadline has already passed, and the bill for the last month is still unpaid. Pans notes that he thinks he can avoid punishment if he makes the manager his opponent. The girl only smiles and says that these two are still better than most adventurers. The hero happily notices how his knives have become even sharper after the enhancement. Another character, stunned and enraged, shouted that he would tear the mages to pieces. The squad of heroes resolutely declares that they are ready to fight. To this, Pans replies that jokes should not be taken too seriously. The hero asks to wait a little and promises that he will definitely repay as soon as the opportunity arises. Xtamen stands and waits for the hero to apologize to him. X is amazed, not understanding how this could have happened. She also notes that these people got what they deserved. Other heroes sincerely thank the main hero, admire his courage, and do not hide their admiration for his actions. X thanks them both with all his heart for their support. The manager eagerly awaits the hero's arrival today. The girl says with a smile that she will be very happy to see him. The waitress asks what to prepare for him. X asks for a special dish called hanji. He adds that if this little wizard decides to intervene, then everything will end quickly. The gentleman replies that first they need to take a few more people, and after that properly teach them a lesson. The girl happily reports that news about the forester's murder has finally appeared. The hero is also pleased to hear this. The group enters the devil's forest. There is a strange silence here, and suddenly they notice something unusual that makes them stop and look around in surprise. He asks what happened. The man points out that the magic stone has disappeared from the ground. The young man learned with surprise that the demon has not yet died and is still alive. The hero, with sadness in his voice, apologizes and asks for help. After that, he suddenly disappears, leaving everyone completely astonished. The message from the forester turned out to be a lie. This matter was handled only by X all along, and the others just claimed his achievements as their own. And now, when everything has become more complicated, they can no longer do anything on their own. Because of this, the demons did not receive any damage, and the precious time they had hoped for was lost. Who forbade collecting magical stones that belonged to the demons? However, none of the newcomers even suspected this. It turned out that Elfman betrayed them. Since then, the young guild members, known to everyone as zombies, lost the trust of those around them and fell into disgrace. The hero sighs with regret, as he just noticed that he lost his wallet. The man advises the hero to work with a client who previously refused their help, but Pans immediately rejects this proposal. Pan assures that the shop will definitely appraise the sword, even if no one has used it yet. He adds that they will surely give as much money as needed. He is also interested in 1 gold coin. The hero strictly orders not to touch the sword and promises to return for it in a month. The hero promises to give the sword during the bonus period, which will come next month. Pans wonders why you had to pay such a large amount at the restaurant, especially when the promised bonus was never given. But even on this day, the hero did not appear. The butler notes that today the Viscount is in a good mood. He asks if something pleasant happened at the ball. The Viscount explains that this device can create a cool breeze. Hearing this, the boy immediately recalls that homemade pipe with ice and wind magic that an inexperienced wizard once gave him. Bradley noticed how the princess became interested in his gift. This pleased him greatly, as now he hoped to earn a good reputation. The hero admits that one problem arose. X no longer seems like an adventure at all. The Viscount advises inviting performers home for shows. He notes that a poor and unemployed unlucky wizard would gladly accept the offer to work for him. The butler agrees with the proposal, considering it excellent, and promises to carry it out. Meanwhile, the hero shares that he has already completed his first task. He made 200 identical pipes. The Viscount sees that the main hero has learned an important thing thanks to him. The young man sincerely thanks the Viscount for his support and help. The hero points out that only X can restore the magical light that was no longer there. Moreover, X complains of a headache, even though the mission is already completed. The butler asked the maid what had happened. She replied that in the large compartment number 7, the ice began to melt, and asked to bring fresh ice as soon as it was ready. The hero suggests destroying everything stored in the 7th freezer compartment, but the created objects consider this too wasteful and advise first calling a master to simply replace everything necessary, rather than destroying everything indiscriminately. The butler noted that the magic of the Axis Lord is truly unique. He remarked, only he was able to make such jugs from which water flowed constantly, and no one else could repeat that. The maid confessed that she never imagined how strong X was. The hero explained to her, the magic that X uses is actually very simple, but its effect lasts extraordinarily long. Wasting no time, he gets to work, striving to defend the family's honor. The butler agrees to help, promising in return a generous reward and a place among the family members at the family table. X approaches the mailbox and sees a soft toy inside. X reports that he will now get the soldier rabbit and emphasizes, this is nothing unusual. He says that at Ryuki's home there are plush rabbits everywhere which she sewed herself. The hero points out, at first glance all the toys look the same, but for Ryuki each rabbit is special, and she easily recognizes each one of them. X recalls how she declared that she could manage without his support, and this arouses his suspicions. Feeling that something is wrong, the hero decides to go to Ryuki's workshop. The boy took the key he managed to get from Ryu and secretly entered her workshop. X opens the door and apologizes for disturbing. The hero immediately notices that Ruka has magical abilities, just like himself. The hero explains that magic does not obey ordinary logic. It comes from the land of eternal emptiness. For each type of magic, there is its own special sphere. Somewhere on the plains fire constantly flares up, and in the valleys covered with ice, relentless cold rains. Magic connects our world with the land of emptiness, and it is thanks to it that the traits of ordinary inhabitants of this boundless void manifest. The mage, using a magical element in his body, opens a tunnel between our world and the world of the void. To do this, he makes a deal with a creature from the void, allowing it to make a hole in his body. Such powers usually do not bring people what they truly desire. Ryuka possessed a unique talent. She was a master dollmaker, but one day the void took away everything she valued above all. Since then, Ryuka remained alone, and the only thing she could sacrifice was her fear of communicating with people. The hero notes that this boy has already become a close friend of Ryuki, and jealousy awakens in him. He understands. It is because of this man that Ryuki lost her confidence, and now others cannot approach her. X says that he and Ryuki became friends on the very day he first heard her voice. Next to the door sits a small animal, resembling a bunny, tightly clutching a ball of yarn with its paws. The hero noticed that the animal fell because it was walking and got tangled in the threads. Ryuka approaches the animal, supports it so that it can stand up, and then it slowly starts moving forward again. She asks to wait a little and carefully watches everything happening around. X greeted Ryuk and informed that he came to visit him. The girl sincerely rejoiced when she saw the hero, but with a smile noted that next time he could at least ring the doorbell. X reminds that he already rang the doorbell, but she did not hear it. After that, the hero turns to Ryuk and asks why she is so nervous. Ryuka reassures that nothing important happened. She asks to wait for her a little and goes back to X. The little rabbit was under the rubble and stones that fell on him from above. The hero looks carefully at Ryuk, and although she is a little shy, she silently nods in agreement. Ryuk sincerely admits that she was scared to ask him for help. She wonders if he feels happy. The hero notices that he has been here only a few minutes, and the rabbits are already running away and can no longer endure. He apologizes and admits that he did not even think about how much harder everything would become without an additional unit to intelligence. X sees with relief that the rabbit managed to get free. Ryuka thanked X for his support. She said that now they can finish everything. At that very moment, the hero confesses that he feels like a real hero for the first time. The girl looks at X in surprise, and he assures her with a slight smile that there is no need to worry. All issues can be considered resolved now. The hero confidently says that only he can solve this problem and asks to trust him. The little animal rushes forward with excitement, joyfully shouting each time, "Boost." X points to the last door and calls everyone's attention to it. Many small animals live in the room. The hero immediately states that he does not want to work here and directly expresses his refusal. He says that everyone has already arrived, and now he has no choice. The girl gently hugs the hero from behind, as if wanting to give him all her tenderness. The hero laughs cheerfully and admits that he himself does not know when she will finally calm down. X asks Ryuka what she is doing at this moment. She reminds the main character that he has already heard her explanation. The girl says, if the dolls do not receive complex tasks, they become difficult to control. Therefore, she suggests that the hero should work only when he himself wants to. The girl said that he misunderstood everything and advised him to rest a little. X apologizes and admits that he was a bit tense. The hero enjoys the gentle aroma of tea and notices how it becomes quieter in his soul. Ryuka wonders if he managed to relax. X thanks her and admits that he really feels calmer now. She explains that this is a large silver coin, a real reward, and hands it to the hero. He feels deep gratitude and sincerely thanks her for such a generous gift. The girl says that when you get used to living better, it is hard to return to simple weekdays. She adds, you will have to face difficult and unpleasant matters again, as it was before. It is worth saying that the tea here is really extremely tasty, and one cannot fail to mention how convenient and useful the magic of the main character is. The girl asks if the hero really hears her words. Ryuka decided to offer one more reward. She asks the hero to forgive her. He warns her not to play with food. Ryuka looks around confusedly, not understanding what is happening, but eventually takes the treat and begins to eat. The servant enters the chief chamberlain and reports that the report is already ready. He asks if it is true that the mage has no rank and because of this is considered imperfect. The boy honestly admits, yes, that is indeed the case. The hero notices, from inside the magical device that the princess gave him at the evening event, a cool breeze is constantly blowing. This alarms him. Could this strange object be hiding some dangerous weapon? The grandfather asks the hero, with surprise, what he is thinking about, and notes that his desire X is simply an unwillingness to work. The grandfather suddenly hears someone's voice and asks in surprise who is speaking. He immediately recognizes that it is the princess's voice and is very surprised. The girl advises him to come closer and ask directly. He notes that the weather outside today is unpleasant and damp. Hearing a knock at the door, the hero wonders who could have come. She hopes that X is still waiting. The girl shares how she recently tried to convince the hero to return to adventures, but she failed. The girl says that she is currently near Guildmaster. She is confident if the hero apologizes to X, he will definitely forgive him. The guild leader admits that X has caused her problems more than once, but she agrees to accept it. She confirms X left the guild because he disagreed with the Viscount's senseless demands. The man promises him 10 gold coins for the completed task, and also a special contract with better pay. However, the butler only asks in response if they really think the hero will want to return after such treatment. The master offered 100 gold coins and proposed to conclude a special contract. He noted that the amount turned out to be larger than they expected, but the hero probably still won't be fully satisfied due to a feeling of distrust. However, the man said he was ready to help, although he warned. For this job, he will offer only 5 gold coins. Mr. Yesman sighed with relief upon hearing words of support from the master. It turned out he had no need to worry at all. He laughed and X could not hide his surprise. This reaction struck him. X admits that he left everything behind and asks the interlocutor to leave, adding that he has nothing more to say. Hearing this, the master gets irritated and angrily calls the mages cursed. He explains that he has already spent almost all his money on a new house. The hero confesses. Now he does not even worry about another guild member. He also says that he could have given X rank A, although he would have done so without much desire. The master recalls how X, even when he had rank E, proved himself excellently in joint work. The guy really helped and brought good profit. He promises that they will not cause anyone any inconvenience. The host invites everyone to enter the house to talk calmly. The hero says he has come a long way precisely for this meeting. X asked to be left alone. The guild master asked in surprise if he heard correctly. The hero confidently says that he does not want to do that. He says that perhaps they should leave here. However, the girl reminds that they came here to apologize. The guild master apologized and promised to fulfill what Mr. X asked, and also assured that he would personally ask him for forgiveness. X notices that everyone around took Kuma's words quite seriously. The hero says that their task is completed, so it is time to move on further. The master says that there is a place in Class A for Mr. X and invites him to join the guild again. The hero asks excitedly, "Isn't Class A amazing?" X confidently says that he will not go back and asks for permission to leave. The boy admits that being in the guild is just another hard task for him, which no one particularly appreciates. The guild master asks to wait a little and listen to his words, and X is happy because he finally managed to share this with that very person. The boy feels significant relief. The mentor considers changing her work tasks. At this time, she suggests that Mr. X meet together on a date. The hero notices that X has started thinking differently, and this truly pleases him. X adds that if they do not leave immediately, he will leave the city. In response, the man says that they have only taken a break and are already planning to retreat, so he asks not to rush them. The girl watches with surprise as the man silently turns and slowly walks away. He sincerely wishes his colleagues good luck at work. Then X decides to tell Ryuka about what he just did. The girl returns to the guild master and asks him not to hurry and to wait a little. She says that if the hero went to another city, they might have had a chance. Hildmeister understands that he has already used the reward, so he cannot just let Axel Eve go for the sake of others. He also thinks that if something happens to Axel Eve, the Viscount will definitely punish him severely. The man gently soothes her and assures that he has his own secret plan. The master takes all responsibility upon himself and asks the group to wait for 3 days. Meanwhile, the girl decides to use these days to achieve what she desires with the help of her magic and beauty. The hero wondered if the moment had come to retrieve the magical artifact he had hidden in the secret room in the warehouse. He thought that using such a powerful item under these circumstances was almost a waste, but there was no other way now. Magical artifact, Ring of Slavery. If someone wears this ring, they immediately lose 1 level of magical power. The ring begins to absorb the person's psychic energy and forces them to obey telepathic commands that cannot be ignored. The master declares that the hero will pay for his audacity because he challenged him. Moreover, he says this will be a trial for the novice mage who possesses only the simplest spells. The hero began to talk about different levels of magic. The highest is advanced, followed by intermediate, then basic, and the lowest is 0 level. He also explained that the ring limits the ability to use a large amount of magical power. He hesitates, unsure if it will really affect the main character, but in the end, he decides that at least mastering mid-level magic is necessary. The guild leader admits with a smile that he has laughed more than once at Axe's antics. Then he asks the team to wait a bit and assures them that they have the necessary money. The man notices that they are in the guild's hideout and says he never imagined he would end up as a fugitive because of his own actions. He notes that serious danger lies ahead as they will have to pass through a demonic forest to escape. The hero understands that it is time to leave this place behind and try to start everything anew. He wonders if he has enough strength to pass through the dark, inhospitable Stark Forest. He asks with surprise what kind of new protection is being talked about, since in front of him there is just a thick piece of iron wire. The guild leader honestly admits that he himself is hearing about such protection for the first time and did not even know that something like this exists in the city. The hero realizes that this trick does not work on people, so he only needs to climb over the wire. He freezes in amazement as magical explosions, loudly flare around. The butler notices if Yesman tried to escape, then he failed to complete the Viscount's assignment. The guildmaster asks if he installed the electric fence. The boy calmly replies that the forest guard is under the protection of the Viscount. The butler notices that the forester also takes his job responsibly. The hero shares that they had to build all the fences themselves and do all the hard work, along with other tasks. According to him, it is just an ordinary electric discharge, but this time it lasts much longer than usual. One man threatening the prisoner offered him to go to the gold mines for 5 years as punishment, since 5 coins were found on him. The guild came to them together with the master, forced them to return the money, and after that they left the guild master. However, the butler found something else unusual. He allows keeping the ring for himself, but sets one condition: it must be worn only on the finger. The guildmaster does not want to wear the ring and resists, but he will still have to answer for what he did. The butler orders the lord's servant to work in the mine. The man notices how he gradually loses warmth in his body. The hero accidentally notices the butler on the street and immediately realizes that a lot of time has passed since their last meeting. The basketball player asks if the hero really left the guild. He notes that he has already received a deposit for this matter, so X can no longer refuse. He will have to complete the task. No matter how big the reward is, he stubbornly refuses to take on the Viscount's affairs. The butler finally realized that he was cheated. The guildmaster did not pay him anything from the acquired sum. The young man is sure this man will not escape punishment for his lying words. The guildmaster wears the ring heavily, which constantly reminds him of guilt. He will be able to remove this burden only after he receives deserved punishment. He realizes that ahead of him lie 5 years of harsh and difficult life, but he does not even suspect that Yesman, having learned about the deception, secretly extended his term by a whole 100 years. The Viscount reminded that the time to meet the princess is near. He especially emphasized how important it is to finish the work as soon as possible, since they still need to manage to make and prepare 200 pipes as a gift. He suggested looking for someone else to perform this task. The young man agreed but clarified that he was told only X is capable of doing this. One of the characters, with a sly smile, suggests kidnapping the young mage, demonstrating his cunning and desire to resort to deception. The heroes gathered together to consider their next steps. One of them calls Urikara the king of the slums, emphasizing his influence in dark circles. During the conversation, they decide to use this person to carry out their plan. However, doubts arise among the heroes. One of them asks to carefully reconsider everything once again to avoid making a mistake in such a responsible choice. The young mage has already been captured. Ogretz confidently says that if the boy is given a separate room in the basement and treated with respect, he will quickly stop resisting. The Viscount speaks with enthusiasm and surprised that the idea seems very interesting and well thought out. Others also agree with his words, although one of them still doubts whether the hero really intends to implement this plan. He points out that kidnapping people is not the best idea and assures everyone that their bait plan will definitely lead to success. The Viscount says that kidnapping a person is an ungrateful and troublesome task, so he advises simply calling the one needed. Moreover, he believes the most effective way to lure the victim is to use an attractive woman as bait. Hearing the word bait, the hero froze in surprise and confusion. Rikara points out that every criminal organization mind their own business, and everyone knows their group for dangerous cruelty. He also emphasizes that among them, there are no attractive women who could handle such a task. He decisively orders his men to gather everyone together without hesitation and without wasting time. However, when he sees exactly who his subordinates have brought, Urikara cannot hide his surprise. A little girl stands looking slightly scared and weak. An older woman gently smiles at her and assures her that despite her age, she is still young at heart. Next to them sits a pregnant woman who looks at both of them with love. The hero is looking for someone who could help realize his idea, but admits that he has absolutely no one for this. He honestly says he has no idea who could fit this role. The heroine notes with annoyance that she will have to solve all the problems on her own again. Suddenly, another hero appears before her, greeting her warmly and calling her younger sister, to which she responds briefly and drily, not hiding her displeasure. She confidently says that she is his girlfriend, so he can always rely on her. This opens true trust between them and shows a deep emotional connection. The girl openly admits that Urkara is the only one she loves. Urkara considers herself truly special and thinks that this is what enchanted him, but the hero still doubts. He is troubled by the question of whether the girl mentioned in their plan is really that attractive, so he cautiously asks if she can handle the task. The hero decided to test his confidence with a coin. If heads, he would stay with this girl, and if tails, he would try to find another. The man was twisting a coin between his fingers when suddenly it slipped and rolled across the floor, which annoyed him greatly. He began to mutter angrily that he had ruined both his mood and his entire focus over such a trivial matter. The boy saw that the hero dropped a coin and immediately informed him about it. Despite the fact that the coin did not fall in Urkara's favor, he does not retreat. He says he made his decision earlier. The boy doubts whether he should become bait, explaining that he is a boy and this role does not suit him. The girl argues with the hero about his complaints and recalls that she took his favorite clothes. The man addresses the girl, calling her sister. Then his gaze falls on another hero, but he stops, unsure whether it is a boy or a girl, because the appearance does not give him an answer. The hero emphasizes that he is a boy, although his appearance may confuse someone. The sister realizes that this is X. She notices how the other character behaves casually, and this seems to her a good sign. The girl sees a beautiful stranger near X and, surprised, asks who she is. One of the characters notices that their plan will not work because of this girl. He suggests everyone return home. The sister confidently says that now they have a clear advantage, so they should stay. She firmly emphasizes, for Urkara's sake, she is ready to do anything, even if it results in her defeat. The group notices that 3 strangers who had been watching them from afar are now approaching. At this moment, X notices that Ryuka is frightened. The boy X asks the girl what exactly they want from him. The girl smiles and suggests having some fun, and it is clear that she is in a great mood. Ryuka raises his eyebrows in surprise, not hiding his admiration for what he sees. The plush bear points out that during the hero's walk in their space, someone entered without permission. He is especially impressed that among the uninvited guests there is a man, which unexpectedly surprises everyone present. He emphasizes that everything has changed, and now they will have to act differently. The boy notes that it no longer matters how many of them there are because their plan has been revealed. The boy says that they wanted to deceive the hero and lure him into a trap, but now he realizes their plan has failed. He says with disappointment that everything was going well until that girl appeared. One of the characters addresses the heroes with a request. He asks them to pretend that everything went successfully and suggests going to the Viscount to decide together how to act next. The boy says it is better to go voluntarily than to be captured. The man agrees with him and adds, the most important thing is to take care of his sister's good reputation so as not to tarnish her honor. The young hero confidently refuses to act according to the proposed plan, clearly making it known that he does not want to participate. The sister decided to leave this place, noting that everything could have been completely different if everyone had followed the original plan. The team of heroes agrees that the situation got out of control and became too loud. X admits to himself mentally that he never imagined how cunning this trap would be and quietly watches as the opponents leave the place. He feels that everything they did was too simple and even somewhat naive. At this time, Ryuka approaches him, smiles, and says that X behaved really cool. Urkara was surprised that someone could not succumb to the charms of such a beautiful girl as his chosen one. She sincerely apologized for her mistake. The man angrily says that X is bothering him. At this time, a young man approaches him who seems to be familiar with the mage. Urkara explains that he received a clear order to bring the boy to the vicar, emphasizing that this matter cannot be ignored. He addresses the boy amicably and asks how he can repay him or what he needs in return. The boy agrees and says that he still needs medicine for a cold. He explains that he is asking for it for the child who just left. The child firmly says that everything is already decided, but Rikari still cannot find peace. This is not his style, because he has never interfered in children's affairs. The girl sees that her boyfriend managed to find a way to resolve the difficult situation. He confidently says that he will no longer participate in such games and will not use other people, especially his girlfriend, to achieve his goals. The hero thanked Axe for visiting the Viscount and asked if he could return to work, but the mage began to get nervous and angry. The young hero looks with indignation as people use others as bait. What impresses him most is that even children can be drawn into this. He sincerely does not understand how such a thing can happen. The servant noticed that perhaps a mistake had occurred, but the hero immediately accuses him of wanting to avoid responsibility, even despite obvious evidence, and at that moment X says he heard about the arrangement regarding medicine for the sick child. The servant reproaches Yurikar for cruelty to children, but the boy ignores the accusations and smiles, saying he is ready to do anything for his friend. In response, H just mocks him, claiming to despise absolutely everyone. The Viscount gladly welcomes Axel. His voice reveals genuine pleasure and relief, as if he had long dreamed of this meeting and finally awaited the hero. The man was well aware that the boy would definitely fall into the trap, so he strictly ordered the hero to get to work, making sure once again that he understood everything correctly. The hero decisively rejects all demands, loudly declaring that he will never agree to submit to this person. X says in a firm voice that he will never forgive such treatment of children. He suggests returning home and promises to buy medicine for his friend, showing his care and desire to support. The hero named X was about to leave, but the Viscount stopped him. He asked him to wait and suggested talking once more. Rumors came from Emergent. They say that the Viscount supposedly involves children in his own affairs. Because of these talks, people started trusting him less, and his reputation got very spoiled. The girl in a beautiful dress happily announces that she is going to meet a famous mage. Grandfather noticed with surprise that Princess Lula herself went to X. The guards regret that they failed to stop Princess Lulu in time, as she rushed past them so swiftly that they didn't even manage to do anything. The senior hero wondered if he had done right by asking for help from Princess Lula. Princess Lula was the third daughter in the royal family. She had just turned 12 years old, so she was younger than her sisters. Lula had an open and clever face, and one day she brought with her a real wonder. She explains that it is a gift from the Viscount and says that it resembles a light, cool breeze. The man curiously asks what it is, then jokingly suggests that she give the gift to him. Rampa took the mysterious object in his hands and immediately felt something unusual. He focused carefully, deciding to check if there was any danger, but his strength showed only one. Despite this, Rampa could not understand why this thing gave him such a strange feeling. Grandfather notices that nothing special has happened in the city so far. Now he politely asks for permission to hold one more thing. He just wants to look. However, Lula immediately warns him. This thing belongs to her sister, so it must not be broken and one must be very careful. Your technician Herman suspects that he is facing an unusual magical device. He stands in the Royal Laboratory of Magical Technologies, intently studying all the details of what is happening around him. The hero learns that on the same night at the banquet, the princess, following the order of Viscount Roderick, acquired some strange item. He is genuinely surprised. Could aristocrats really know something about such things? The hero himself still does not understand all the details of this situation. Herman notices how easily the object lies in his hands and wonders if it can be taken apart. However, the grandfather immediately stops the boy and sternly warns, if he does it, the princess will be terribly angry. The boy wonders if the formula is directly inscribed on the magical stone in the form of a cylinder. He talks about amazing demonic tools and unique relics. Suddenly, he notices small pieces of ice inside the cylinder and also notices that wind is blowing through a crack. The hero confidently denies it, but suddenly notices that something is missing from the usual place. He is confused and tries to understand where it disappeared. The grandfather, noticing his embarrassment, cautiously asks what happened. The technician looks at the cylinder and says that inside there is not what should be. His face is full of surprise and anxiety. He clearly understands that something went wrong. Grandfather nods in agreement and smiles, noting that it is actually an easy profession. He admits that he once did engraving himself, but the hero immediately clarifies he meant something completely different from engraving. Herman points out that inside the cylinder there are neither magical symbols nor a source of energy. There is not even a trace of a magic stone here. He explains that these are not just ordinary magical tools, but a whole complex structure. Inside it is hidden an ice sphere, and it is filled with the magic of the wind element. The hero admits with excitement that such a device seems incredibly impressive. Grandfather agrees. If this thing really has to do with X, then they still haven't learned how to use it properly. The princess confidently said that probably the mighty sorcerer was to blame for everything, but the grandfather disagreed with her and objected. He believed that it was the result of an ordinary, simple spell that had been in effect for a very long time. She is already fully ready to set off for this item, as it is important for her to complete this task. The princess says with determination that this special gift must be delivered to her sister as soon as possible, as it will be a real surprise for her. Dvoretsky decided to invite an illusionist to his place. During the investigation, the story of a young boy who does not want to work at all is revealed. The princess advised turning to the hero himself to learn about his past, as he is the only one who can tell everything as it is. She is sure that if someone does not want to work, they must explain themselves why they decided so. He suddenly realizes that he might have missed a simple way out of the situation, and therefore suggests meeting with Axe as soon as possible if such an opportunity arises. Dressed in the villa, Lulu notices that the place she needs must be somewhere very close. The princess approaches X and asks what he is doing. X replies that he is looking for a child to give something special to. The girl eagerly agrees to help the hero in the search for the child. It is clear that she is full of determination and ready to act right now. The hero suddenly sees the girl sharply stand up and quickly run away, leaving him alone. He is confused and upset because he does not understand where she disappeared to. The girl approaches the cat and offers him shashlik, assuming that this might be what he likes. The heroes notice that the cat does not even try to touch the shashlik. At that moment, X asks in surprise why she is here and what happened, clearly not expecting to see her in such a setting. Suddenly, the child notices X's brother, rejoices, and cheerfully exclaims, recognizing him. Nita asks the hero for another shashlik, which he is just holding. The hero replies that he just bought medicine for Rin. He admits that even without a job and money, he still bought the medicine. He says it is hard for him to look at his interlocutor. The hero is convinced that because of this attitude, he is considered a suspicious person. X sincerely believes that Lulu will be able to find the one she is looking for. The girl approaches the hero and addresses him, calling him the mighty wizard X. The hero states his name and explains that he is a wizard who was once considered a failure. The girl apologizes and admits that she truly regrets what she said. She confessed that she had long dreamed of asking the master to make the same thing for her. X thought that probably all this was created at the request of the Viscount. The hero smiles and talks about the item. It is really cool and very light. The hero confidently says that it is his own work. The girl learns with surprise that the hero can make another such item. She enthusiastically asks for 2 artifacts at once, and the hero gladly agrees to her request. Lulu exclaims joyfully when she finds out that the great mage X himself is really standing before her, the one she has been searching for so long. She openly shares her admiration for this unexpected meeting. The hero admits that he only knows the simplest magic, so his dreams of becoming a great wizard will not come true. X demonstrates his abilities, casts a spell, raises the wind, and creates an ice ball. The girl watches his magic with admiration. The hero asks the girl to keep his magical ability a secret. He requests that no one else find out about it and suggests making it their shared secret. The girl agrees with a smile and promises to keep it a secret just between the two of them. The princess gratefully addresses the hero. Mighty Wizard X, you saved me. I sincerely thank you. X realizes that from the outside it looks funny, although in reality nothing terrible happened, especially after today, when he managed to show everyone his magical abilities. Still, the boy decides not to reveal anything about this to the Beastman. The grandfather, surprised and a little worried, asks the princess where she disappeared to and where she has been until now. The butler reported that everyone was very worried about her long absence. Meanwhile, she approached the grandfather, handed him a gift, and joked with a smile, calling him old man. He notes that this pipe is completely different, not the one they had at the beginning. The princess says that she turned to X with a request to make the same things for her on credit. She firmly says that the royal family should never owe anyone, and therefore every service must be rewarded. The hero encountered 2 problems. The first, near the tavern, he constantly notices people in luxurious clothes behaving suspiciously. Despite their approach with an offer, the hero refused it. X begins to worry that he has almost no money left, and this becomes another important concern for him. He admitted that he is no longer able to return to the time when he fed only on slime. Now his diet has changed. The hero even recalled how yesterday, after dinner at a restaurant, he ordered himself juice. The mage points out that he has warm stones in his hands. These are special stones of the celestial demon, on which a weak fire spell is cast. The hero stops and thinks about what to do next. He sincerely admits to himself that he does not want to work, but money is still needed. X decided to try his luck in gambling, dreaming of winning a large sum of money and becoming rich. The hero says that the chest is an unusual thing that helps him wait out, while the magic of luck and fortune in the lottery does not end. He adds that his own magical power will remain with him for a long time, showing confidence in his abilities. The young man understands that being fascinated by gambling is not the best idea, but he is still proud of his strategy. He is sure that he came up with something clever and profitable. Nitro suddenly called out to X, which scared him greatly. X jumped up from surprise. The hero asked his girlfriend if she felt better after the medicine he brought yesterday. At that moment, he unexpectedly remembered the potion shop seller. It seems she still holds a grudge against him because he bargained with her for a long time and persistently. He said that he had already received help once and asked that this support be given to another girl so that she would not worry out of gratitude. X praised Nitra, noting that he was a real good fellow. The hero sincerely admitted that he wanted to invite him for shashlik, but accidentally only touched his wallet. Hearing this, Nitra asked Axel if he had run out of money, since a considerable amount had to be spent on medicine. He said that Rai was not sick with a simple cold, but had received a curse from Fala. Only an elven elixir, which costs a lot of money, can cure him. The hero confidently assured that the situation was under control and nothing terrible would happen. Then he suggested taking money to buy medicine and help Rai. He was sincerely surprised that he could finally buy what he once constantly lacked money for. He confidently said that everything would be fine. Nitro at first thought a little, but in the end agreed. The hero was finally convinced that he had no money left in his pockets at all. Nitra sincerely thanks the hero, expressing gratitude for his support and good deeds. The hero feels calm and relaxed, filling his heart with joy and giving deep satisfaction. The hero thinks about how to live further. Maybe tomorrow he will help with something or look after Lena's shop. He admits that he has no money, but feels warmth in his heart. X notices how the stones in his pocket have already warmed up completely. The mage thoughtfully scratched the back of his head and began to ponder. What if he tried to offer his warm stones to some rich man looking for new entertainments? The hero in an elegant suit and top hat appears with a smile radiating optimism and faith in the better, and asks if anyone has already thought about dinner. Lula sits at the table, holding a cup of tea in her hands. In her thoughts sounds gratitude to the assistant. It was he who helped organize the meeting with the great mage. Xian, Lula's sister, became very interested in who exactly made that cool pipe she saw. Now she wants to meet this person. Shin admits that Lula's naivety sometimes makes her wary. The girls discuss whether they will be able to find the person who created this strange pipe. The girl wondered why did he avoid eating together before, but now he himself invited her to the table. She felt that the mysterious mage had set his rules and tried to understand what he had planned this time. Shin still remembers hearing that all mages usually behave strangely, which worries her. What if some mage could negatively affect her younger sister Lula? The mentor agrees but warns that it is necessary to act cautiously. The girl does not understand which specific safety measures are being referred to. Grandfather says that one must not say the word work in the presence of the magician. This surprises everyone because no one understands why there is such a strange prohibition. Lulo notes that the brave mage is not eager to get to work at all. She reflects on how unfair it is to avoid one's duties and take advantage of someone else's kindness. Comparing her situation to this, the girl feels like a bird in a cage. Her freedom is limited. The older man frowned and sternly addressed Miss Heian. Do not dare ask him where he gets money, why he does not work, or when he plans to find a job. Such questions are strictly forbidden here, he emphasized. Lula asked her sister what had happened. Her sister replied that she understood everything, but Lula noticed there was something unusual, something false in her sister's smile. The hero looks around in surprise, not understanding where he is being taken. He still cannot believe he is sitting in such a luxurious carriage, and because of this feels both excited and enchanted. Thank you for staying close and following this story with me. The young man smiles and tells the hero that they are just here as accompaniment. At that moment, the hero feels a strong desire to be home and also begins to suspect that the person he had to meet probably has noble origins. X admits that he had been in this place before, but it never occurred to him that they would end up here again right now. The hero learns with surprise about the hidden paths known only to the closest people. A polite servant in a flawless suit and top hat cordially invites guests to enter inside with a gesture of his hand. He looks at the mage with incomprehension and asks if he is all right. The mage looks even more surprised and cannot even find words to answer. The hero thinks maybe this place is a portal for teleportation, although the cafe is located in a quiet and remote corner. He admits with surprise that he never even imagined finding hidden doors here. The servant noticeably became nervous and reminded that if they did not hurry, they would definitely be late. The hero shares that this is his first experience traveling in space and already dreams of how he will tell his friends Rutsi and Kumi about it when he returns home. Once a group of people came across a hero. One of the characters politely addresses the main hero and invites him to go through certain doors, thereby showing him where he should head next. People who once lived in the city came here only to taste delicious food. They could not even imagine that they would witness such an incredible spectacle. Among all the people, the hero suddenly notices a girl. Lula suddenly exclaims joyfully. She recognizes the hero as a distinguished mage. The girl's eyes shine with admiration and respect for his legendary fame. X notices Lula and recalls how she once helped him. In his heart, he thanks another character for the invitation today, but that one just waves it off, saying he is only a servant here. The hero also notices that the other girl remarkably resembles Lula's sister. They have almost identical facial features. The girl introduced herself as Shin and introduced the hero to her sister Lulu and their butler. She thanked him for the rescue and addressed him as the great sage X. The hero tells that since childhood he was considered an inept mage and was even called defective. However, Lulu objects. If he did all that, then without a doubt he is a true distinguished mage. Lulu suggests everyone sit at the table and start dinner, since the introduction has already taken place. Shin thoughtfully adds that among aristocrats it is important not only how the dishes taste, but also where the ingredients come from and what prestige the served dishes have. The hero notices spoons of different sizes on the table and advises taking the largest one if possible. He says with admiration that the soup looks very appetizing. But the hero admits that he does not like one of the spoons. The girl nearby notes, if you take the largest spoon, it may indicate that you have money problems. X asked where the sister's parents had gone. She and her grandfather assumed that most likely the father decided to speak with the king himself. Lula shares that her parents are always busy with affairs. The hero sighs with sympathy. He is sad that her life is like that. Lula hands the hero a special soup spoon and explains in detail how to use it properly. The boy sincerely thanks her for the help. At that moment, Shin wonders whether their conversation was something more than just a coincidence. Sean claims that the girl will not ask him about anything. She wonders if she was mistaken when she refused with a gesture and thinks about whether this boy has something in common with the others. The hero notices that the food looks incredibly delicious, but honestly admits that he has already eaten so much that he cannot taste even a crumb more. X regretted that he had eaten heartily before setting off on the road. The grandfather approaches the hero and asks if he has any problems. The hero reacts with surprise, not immediately understanding why he is being asked such a question. X says that he intended to sell something, implying that he wants to talk about it. The hero explains that these stones can give warmth on frosty winter days. The girl asks what price he is asking for these warming stones. He explains that this is just an ordinary magic stone with basic fire magic, Ho-1, which can often be obtained for free. The hero admits that he finds it difficult to understand how prices are determined here, and jokes that he would like to sell this stone for a higher price if it were possible. Ryuka suggested giving the buyer a chance to name the price for the goods himself, hoping that this way he could sell it for more. X agrees with the proposal and advises leaving the right to set the price to the buyer himself. The girl supports this idea and suggests following this approach in the future. Lula noticed that all the goods cost only 1 gold coin. She was very surprised when she realized that the price was a whole gold coin. She admits to herself that she does not know the exact answer to this question. A wonder arises in her mind. Why does the hero, who has already shown his abilities more than once, persist so stubbornly in this? At the same time, she realizes that if she says no, the hero might side with their enemies. Lula suggests discussing this question again. Shin nods in agreement and notes that her answer may change his views. Lula confidently states that only she sincerely believes in the great mage. He believes that ideally 7 small silver coins will be quite enough. The hero assures, even if they get lucky and become rich, this silver will be more than enough. 3 heroes sat together at the table, smiling and nodding to each other as if each was glad about the decision made. In front of them lay a large pile of gold. It was their shared reward, which filled them all with pride. X notices that they suddenly started boasting about their wealth. He confidently says that now he can ask them for a large silver coin without any doubt. The girl turns to the hero and says that only he can decide which exact reward he will receive. He paused for a moment, pondering whether to take at least one of the gold coins, since all the coins on the table were made of pure gold. Shin did not restrict his choice and left everything to his discretion. He thought it would be better to take a large silver coin, although perhaps he was allowed to choose a gold one as well. He was surprised by such a large number of coins. Why were there so many here? Now he began to think about how to find the genuine coin among all these fakes. Could it be that this is exactly what Shin wished for, real miracles that are impossible to imagine? He admits that he is unable to use appraisal magic to determine the difference between the items and honestly says he does not know how to distinguish them. They look the same. The girl notices an unusual expression flash across his face and reminds him that they should hurry. The hero confidently says that he deservedly received this award, and he does not doubt that he made the right choice. The girl casts a look full of doubt at the hero and quietly asks if he is sure about his choice. It is important for her to understand if this is really the right decision. Lula approached Sheena, trusting the power of the great mage. She thereby demonstrated sincere support and deep respect. Sheena notes that although the hero does not want to work, he does not suffer from greed. The girl addresses Mr. X with a question about whether he is ready to talk about his special traits. Her eyes shine with curiosity, and she waits for him to reveal more about his unusual abilities. His main trait is the ability to continue the effect of spells, which often comes in handy. He admits that operating only with simple magic can be difficult. The heroine also notices that elementary magic is too weak for important tasks. X admits that he used to study the strongest magic, but over time decided to leave this path. The girl learns with surprise that the hero consciously refused the opportunity to possess another level of magic. She compares her life to a bird in a cage, lamenting the limits and rules set for her by the royal family. Shin asks if he regrets his choice. He replies that he consciously took this path and cannot say whether it was easy or hard. The hero admits that he always thought of himself as a failure and feels that with each day he loses confidence in his abilities. The girl noticed that the hero himself decided to give up everything that could have given him an advantage. She openly says that since childhood she was sure her future was already decided and she would marry only by the minister's will. It seemed there was no other way, but the girl adds, if the hero finds the strength to give up his own benefits, he will be able to gain true freedom. The girl who introduced herself as Lula Whiting bravely said that she recognized a famous mage in the hero. Lula seriously addresses the hero and insists that he never call himself a loser again. The hero sincerely thanks the girl for her support, his heart filled with joy and gratitude. The girl sincerely thanks the hero for the wonderful time spent and admits that she also really liked everything. She promises to carefully keep the gifted stones. The girl asked him to come to her once more. X said goodbye to Lula. X pondered the guide who would never return. At that moment, his gaze stopped on a gold coin. The hero doubts whether the coin before him is genuine, so he decides to check it. He says that if the coin turns out to be real, he will return and bring 10 large silver coins. Shin looks surprised at the large pile of gold coins and asks what to do with them now. Grandfather calmly smiles and says he has known about this for a long time. She promised that she would do everything possible to get the gold directly to him. After Lula recognized Ix, he was officially appointed the chief mage of the royal family. Before that, Ix had not even suspected such a possibility and thought it was just a myth. But suddenly, his name appeared among the most famous mages. The Academy of Mages is a huge organization whose structure resembles a guild for brave adventurers. From the documents, it is clear that X occupies the 9th position. The hero says with distrust that he is hearing about this person for the first time. He suggests that perhaps this is the king's illegitimate child. The old mage thoughtfully says that perhaps the princess just went a bit too far with the jokes. The worker reminds him that they still haven't figured out who X really is. The mage says that the search must start over because it seems to him a futile task. Here, teacher Kuker approaches and offers to help find the missing student. The girl began searching all over the world to find out what H's name was. The search showed nothing. It seems X is not working right now. Kuker noticed with surprise and a bit of disappointment that nothing could be found. The documents indicate that once X was a member of the Adventurers Guild with an E rank. He was known there by the nickname Faulty Mage. The owl smiled and reported that this was all she could find out. The old man pondered why anyone would join the guild if they did not intend to work there. The girl reassured him and suggested, perhaps X registered with the guild only once, just to remain unnoticed. The owl again comes across a mention of X. He is now in the Adventurers Guild, has a D rank, and carries the nickname Unsuccessful Mage. Such news greatly surprises the mage, as X had recently lost his previous rank. Kuker objected that this could not relate to a person who had earned the title of Great Mage, but the girl said with surprise that the choice was indeed very precise. The girl anxiously asks why their anti-magic did not work at all. Her eyes are full of worry because she cannot understand what happened. The main heroine reflects on what the name of the great wizard X means to her when she recalls him. X acquired magical knowledge from the high elves of the Red Forest, and they offered him to join the Adventurers Guild. However, when X came to the guild and wanted to become part of it, he was met with ridicule. Others did not take him seriously because X refused to use the basic principles of magic. Lula said that now X has become a true mage because she appointed him a great mage. The butler added that this news would be a real surprise for everyone. The heroes admit that they themselves do not understand how everything happened, but they have already prepared traps to track who breaks the rules. Meanwhile, at X, they inquire about his name. The hero suggests giving this the name X and adds that, in his opinion, EQ would be the best fit. One of the characters notes that if you ignore the pronunciation, their names are indeed very similar. He also encourages the main hero, expressing his support. X admits that walking on foot positively affects health, so he goes outside, planning to think on the way about what to do today. The girl suggests to Ryuk to spend time together. They can either work or play something interesting. X advises inviting the boy over, or buying a gift for Nitra and her sister Rai. The main character notices that Nitra got bored after they found all the treasures in the moat. The boy wondered, was it a coincidence that he met Lena right here, or was it fate itself that decided to unite their paths? The woman hands him delicious and airy cloud pastries he had long dreamed of. X admits that he is a bit worried about his other plans. The hero confidently confirms these pastries were exactly his wish. Besides, he is informed that some girl who was very nervous was looking for him. Hearing this, X just shrugs indifferently and replies that he does not know her. It turned out that the girl did not have a single soft toy. The girl says goodbye, smiles, and says that Mr. Axe will definitely return soon. The hero wondered who could be so persistently searching for him. He asks himself in surprise, could there really be those in the world capable of such persistence? Another girl shouted joyfully because she finally managed to find this magician. X notices the fear in her eyes and thoughtfully says that it seems to him he has seen this girl somewhere before. The girl quickly asks the hero to cast a strengthening spell on her as soon as possible. He adds that these enhancements were completely unnecessary. In response, the hero says he does not intend to use the strengthening spell, better to rest a bit than waste energy and continue acting without changes. She asks how much she should pay the hero, or if he even needs money at all. X points out that everyone around is watching them closely and advises her to think again about whether she really needs this spell. The girl again asks the hero to do what he has already done before because she believes only he can do it, as he is special to her. The girl claims that she is the most famous in the city, and to prove it, she is ready to give her body. Another girl firmly orders the first to stay away from the hero. She takes a defensive stance, showing that she does not like the situation at all. X turns to another girl and asks if she is Mara, the famous S-rank adventurer. With curiosity, he asks if she is going to help him. Mara with a smile announces that X will spend this night at her place. The girl firmly refuses to stay overnight with the first girl. At that very moment, Mara uses the shadow bird spell. The girl desperately begged the hero to stay, but Mari's forces held her tightly, not allowing her to take a single step. The hero realizes that the place where he fell is very soft and comfortable, much more so than any pillow he has ever seen. Mara resolutely asks him for even more reinforcements, demonstrating her strong desire to obtain new magical power. The girl suggests to the hero to first tell what she does so that he can calmly consider his choice and make a decision without haste. Sarah shares that she was recently struck by a thought about a mysterious old woman. The main character begins to wonder if such a person really exists. She hides under a dark hood, and people know her by different names. She is called a witch-seer, a being who seeks eternity and exists beyond time. Her body is hidden in the void, and she can see the future. For thousands of years, she has traveled this world, and this is what makes her even more mysterious, making people wonder, who is she really? The hero urges everyone to stay calm, listen carefully to his words, and not make unnecessary movements. He talks about a new method of protection called the Forest Guard. The hero also shows a special talisman called Buff 1 Inch, which will help overcome an unexpected obstacle on their path. She adds that once the witch said exactly the same thing. X sadly admits that because of this, he now has no magic left at all. Sierra sighs with visible relief and thanks him. She wonders if it was really necessary to insist so much on her own, and X apologizes to her for involving her in this difficult situation. The girl introduces herself. Her name is Mara Ian, and she emphasizes it is not because of X's abilities that she speaks about herself. Mara frankly says that she currently feels sick. The girl who calls herself Mara Ian admits that she feels bad when she does not receive excess magic. Sarah addresses the hero with a request. She is ready to allow him anything, since she does not receive any money until her research finds a buyer, but X reassures her. There is no need to act rashly, because he will give her a reward anyway when her work is sold. The girl sincerely thanks the hero for supporting her. In response, he says that the protection is made with magic, so it is impossible to understand its true structure. The hero also adds that this very reason brought him to the city. He wanted to see with his own eyes and figure out the rumors about the new magical protection system. He adds that it was just a very loud strike. The hero explains, lightning created by magic is just energy that has no independent source. It appears thanks to the skill of the mage and exists only as long as he supports it. The girl wonders if she made a mistake in choosing her path. She admits to herself, maybe magic is unattainable, but creating an electric discharge is within the power of science. X asked Sierra why she works so persistently. The girl explained that the main reason for her efforts is a sense of her own mission. Sierra sincerely admitted that maybe it sounds childish, but she really dreams of becoming a person whom everyone admires and takes as an example. She asked if he was offended by her. The hero understood why she had to work and considered it quite normal. In response, Mara honestly said that she actually does not like all this at all. The girl admits that it is extremely difficult for her to forget the sincere gratitude expressed to her by the children. Mara sincerely thanks X for helping her and always being there. The main heroine suggested meeting again. Everyone gladly agreed, as they found it interesting and fun together. Finally, the hero loudly declares that he came to play. He points out that Ryuka almost always stays at home, but that does not stop him. He still goes inside. The hero tells Ryuka that he came here just for fun, although he realizes that it might seem strange to her. The girl holds a cake and, together with the other characters, joyfully congratulates the hero. Everyone sincerely rejoices in his achievements and enthusiastically congratulates him on becoming a great mage. The boy reminds Ryuka that she was wrong when she suggested reading the newspaper. Ryuka points at the hero and says, "Here he is." However, the hero denies it, claiming that it is not him at all, but Mr. Ekis. The hero points to the newspaper headline, where the name X is written in huge letters. He smiles and says that if you remove one letter, it immediately becomes clear who it really is about. Ryuka, who was standing nearby, asked in surprise what was going on and why all these antics. There was a big cake on the table, and the main hero assured her that it was the most delicious cake she had ever tasted. X, with his head held high, calls himself a great wizard and confidently accepts this new role for himself. The girl asked when she should return to work again, hinting that they should continue their affairs or meetings. Ryuka asks the hero if he plans to leave already and notes that he might soon run out of money. The hero is surprised to see that Ryuka has already finished all the tasks and even managed to prepare a delicious cake. The girl speaks joyfully, not hiding her admiration. The boy admits that he sold the warm stone for a gold coin and adds that he was really lucky in this deal. X says that this is his thing, and it can be used together with other items. The teddy bear suggests trying to use this decoration for heating. Ryuka suggested using an old pocket watch, noting that its metal heats up quickly. X suggested giving the bear cub to Kumi, but he immediately disagreed, explaining that the baby might get burned. Ryuka also asks the hero to be more careful with the animal. X reassures the girl and explains that there is no need to worry. The magical flame is not like an ordinary one, it will not harm. The hero calms everyone down, explaining that the flame makes the tree special and poses no threat. He is confident it will not burn the wood and everything here is completely safe. The little animal suggested trying something unusual, and the hero gladly accepted her offer. Another animal, very similar to a hare, joins the competition. At this moment, cold indifference meets a bright desire to live. The hero utters a spell that warms the hearts of everyone around, giving them the warmth of a true summer. Two cute creatures, resembling fluffy toys, glow happily with joy and happiness. Ryuka tightly hugs one of the animals, which she calls Kuma. She smiles, noting how warm it is, and gently cares for it. The girl noticed that the small creature was still breathing, and the main character sincerely confirmed it. X was glad because everyone liked his idea. The girl asks X to step back a little. He smiles and jokingly asks if she is jealous of the doll. Then he adds, taking care of the doll is her job. The hero becomes fully convinced that it is indeed about the cake. Then he asks if he can help with anything. The girl addresses X and asks him to listen to her. She confesses that there is a place she really wants to get to. The hero solemnly declares that he came specifically for Rukia. He rejoices, smiles broadly, and loudly calls her by name. Ryuka receives the hero's greetings with surprise and joy. Her face immediately breaks into a sincere smile, as she did not expect such an unexpected meeting at all. The girl shares the news that the music festival will take place in Shipton. She admits with a smile that she was so excited she couldn't sleep last night. The hero responds by assuring that it will definitely be a fun event. The hero notices that the coachman is clearly in a good mood. He says that the only way to get to the neighboring town is by taking this very carriage, so he sincerely thanks Ryuk for the help. The hero asks Ryuki if she did not forget her rabbits at home. Ryuka is very worried because she has never been on vacation before. Kuma tries to calm her down and assures her that later they will definitely apologize to all the toys. The young man understands that the Viscount has already promised to distribute these pipes among the noble people, and there is almost no time left. Therefore, he insists that X urgently make 200 more such pipes. The girl looks at the boy with surprise and asks who he is because she is really curious to learn more about him. He also admits that he actually works as a butler for the Viscount. The girl said that this man has not been here for 3 days. The butler was surprised. The girl in the axe room pretends to be a maid, although he himself often quarrels with those who do so. Suddenly, hearing a noise, another character asks, "Who is here?" The hero is sure that he has already met this man. At that very moment, Nitro reminds him, this is the assistant of the Viscount himself. Rai confessed that she was actually feeling unwell at that moment. The girl admits that she was not just sick with a cold, it was a real curse caused by the headlights. She shares a story about how Mr. X came to her aid and sacrificed his money to save her. The girl was sincerely glad that she was allowed to stay quietly in Mr. X's room until they found a new place for themselves. She was surprised that even after the fire, they still had such an opportunity. The hero admits that he was the one who spread the false idea about the mage, but now frankly says, in fact, that man is good and kind. Nitra also shared that the great mage often treats her to shashlik. The girl addressed Nitra and asked to keep it a secret. The man wonders in surprise how someone could be made to call him a great mage using only ordinary magic. Meanwhile, the butler decides to pretend that he heard nothing at all. The butler understands that X is unlikely to return soon, so he says goodbye to the heroes and calmly sets off on his way. The hero guesses that X most likely headed towards Shiptown. He notices that serious guards stand at the city entrance, recording the identification data of every person passing through the gates. Dvoretsky notes that the local army is already aware of the events. He emphasizes, if there is a name X in the grimoire, this person must be guarded especially carefully. Everyone who cannot show documents should be detained. The man says that KH is currently on vacation. Before leaving, they agreed to produce 200 tubes. Now he understands that solving this problem will be very difficult. The second morning in the quiet town of Shiptown came calmly and measuredly. X cautiously knocked on Ryuki's room door. He carefully opened the door and froze on the threshold when he saw her. She was sleeping peacefully, her hair slightly tousled after sleep. Although she was still a little sleepy from the morning, she smiled at him as if greeting the dawn and a true hero. She whispered quietly, "Good morning." X said that in the morning he prepared milk for her. She gladly accepted this care and thanked him. They sit next to each other on the bed, cozily nestled close together in a small, cramped room. The girl apologized to the boy because she could not go with him to the music festival and sincerely felt sad that she lost the chance to be together. KH calmed her down, saying there was no reason to worry. Everything went simply wonderfully, even better than he had hoped. He especially enjoyed the carriage ride. It became a true delight for him. He once again reminded everyone how many difficult trials they had already gone through together and tried to change the subject to distract them from heavy thoughts. In the conversation, he recalled that the guildmaster, for some unclear reason, destroyed his previous map. Now, he wanted to draw a new one to continue doing his favorite work. She was very surprised by this confession. Now she understood why he had no documents and why he always behaved so unusually. Her ex stood behind, radiating joy and full of hope, while she turned to him with a clear irritation on her face. The conversation continued, and the girl sincerely said that she even liked how everything happened, because now X has a chance to become a real mage. But to these words, X replied that he preferred something else. He had long dreamed of becoming a merchant and selling his own goods. Lowering his head, he quietly informed that he planned to create a new map for the guild. Ryuka sat on the bed, tightly clenching her fists, immersed in her thoughts. After long reflections, she finally stood up and confidently said that she would go with him. He tried to persuade her to stay, saying there was no point in going together. But the girl just turned away and firmly said, if she did not go with him, he would definitely get into some trouble. He began to assure her that he was not a weakling at all and could handle everything, that nothing threatened him. But at that very moment, a plush teddy bear flew up to him. The little bear quietly whispered in his ear, telling him that the conversation was about girls who could fall in love with the boy. It added that such feelings and situations scared Ryuko. The boy stood with the soft toy on his shoulder, thoughtfully pondering the words he had heard. Suddenly, a new idea came to his mind, which could become the solution to this problem. He promised the main heroine that everything would turn out well, even if he made new friends. In response, the girl admitted that she still considered them the best friends. X heard her sharply say that he understood nothing at all. It touched him, and he seriously thought about her words. They walked slowly through the city streets, carefully observing everything around. X was convinced that they would reach the trading guild without any difficulties and quickly settle their affairs. Next to him walked Ryuka, who was absorbed in her thoughts. She admitted that she clearly felt someone's attentive gaze on her. When he asked from where exactly they were watching her, she said that it was women who were watching her. He pondered, but Ryuka, angry and dissatisfied, suddenly stopped him with a stern look. Eventually, they reached the trade guild, where they were met by an employee, a young woman with a warm smile on her face. The guys said they only needed a guild card, but the woman noted that one could live peacefully without it too. The bear could not withstand the employee's stubbornness, intervened in the conversation, and sternly demanded that she stop arguing and finally agree to their request. The woman froze in surprise when the toy suddenly spoke. At that moment, X, not wanting to get into trouble, quickly fled. When he returned to Ryuke, he said that even the bravest would be frightened to see a bear start talking. At that very moment, they simultaneously looked back and saw a tail quickly flash behind the back of the one who was pursuing them. Two strangers quietly peeked out from behind a wooden chest, trying to remain unnoticed. The hero froze in place, suddenly realizing that they were being closely watched. True fear awakened in his soul for the first time. Although the pursuers were scared, they apologized, came out to the guys, and assured them that they did not intend to harm them. Moreover, they suggested continuing the journey together, which incredibly surprised the guys. They were informed that everything would happen very quickly, and indeed, in an instant they were already standing on a huge ship. They were told to go inside because the gentleman was already on board and waiting for them. The heroes froze in place, wondering what was expected of them in this mysterious place. In a spacious room, a girl was sitting on a chair, holding her cheek in her palm. Ryoka couldn't hold back and asked X who this woman was, who greeted them so warmly. In response, the girl smiled warmly and gave her name. She is Queen Amina. The boys politely greeted the queen, each introduced himself by name, and listened attentively to her words. In response, the queen asked all the servants to leave the room. They asked the queen how they could help her, as they wanted to show their sincerity and respect. In response, the queen said that she had recently received a strange report. She smiled and sincerely admitted that her curiosity had won, so she couldn't resist and decided to intervene. Extud froze in place from surprise, hearing such frank words. Meanwhile, the queen calmly and comfortably sat in the armchair as if nothing had happened. She gently placed her palms on her cheeks and closely watched how Axe reacted. The queen suddenly noticed Ryuki's bag and asked where she got this amazing thing. One of the girls admitted with admiration that she had long adored the Crazy Doll brand and really wanted to find out how to get the same bag as someone present. The boys wondered if the queen really called them just to learn more about the bag. X looked at her anxiously, waiting for an answer. Ryuka smiled slightly and said that X had no success among others at all, so the queen looked at them with pity. He froze in place, filled with shame from such an assessment. He wanted to say something, but opening his mouth, he could not find the words. Rumors about the hero's extraordinary fame did not spread among the people. He covered his face with his hands, as if wanting to hide his embarrassment and deep shame. The queen looked at them in surprise and could not understand why they were behaving so strangely. She asked again where they got that bag from. Ryoko quietly muttered to her companion that she did not want to explain to the queen where she got that bag. Nearby, the hero stood silently, covering his face with his palms. The heroine stands silently, hesitating whether to confess everything to the queen. In response, X only nods, showing that he understood everything himself and respects her decision. The queen asked what happened, and the young man decided to say his name once again, so that no awkward silence would arise, and immediately explain why he was here. He honestly admitted that the Crazy Doll collection was created by Ryuka herself. His words caused genuine interest and sincere surprise in the queen. The queen gaped in astonishment and admitted that she had long admired Ryuka's creativity. Amin, a little shy, raised her eyes and asked if it was allowed to place an order personally with Ryuka. Her voice showed sincere interest and admiration for the craftswoman's work. He began to say that every client was valuable to her, not just profit. She treated her work sincerely and always helped people wholeheartedly. At that moment, the queen asked him what kind of relationship he had with this girl. She winked at him and joked with a smile, deciding that he was the boy Ryuki, which confused them both a little. Axe was confused, not knowing what to say, and the girl, smiling cheerfully, joked that the queen probably jumped to conclusions a bit. The queen could not believe her ears with joy, suddenly exclaimed happily, and her mood became even better, filled with light. She said that today she was in a wonderful mood and ready to fulfill any wish of the boys. Her hospitality surprised everyone, and the boys were truly impressed by such generosity. The teddy bear quietly told the boy that it was time to take care of the documents, gently reminding him of important matters that should not be postponed. Hearing this, the queen asked in surprise if Axe really had no documents. The boy began to explain how his situation actually unfolded. She joyfully promised to fulfill their wish, and the boys were simply amazed by their luck. They definitely did not expect such an unexpected turn. They were shown the priest's medal. At first, they were not sure if it was really the same medal they had seen before. The queen explained that this medal is available only to special, gifted people. It serves as a kind of distinction by which they can be recognized. At that moment, the hero anxiously tugged Axis by the sleeve, trying to get her attention. Axis looked back and noticed support and understanding in her gaze. She looked at the medal with tenderness, smiled, and said that everything harmonized wonderfully. Kindness and confidence were visible in her eyes. He agreed with everything that was said, and together they sincerely thanked Queen Amina for her kindness and support. She explained that this medal opens up many opportunities and gives special advantages. Hearing this, the children were sincerely impressed. The queen smiled slightly and calmly told them what trials awaited them next. She told them that everyone today has the opportunity to get a drink at the bar for free. The young man smiled and asked jokingly whether alcohol would be served at the celebration. The ruler asked the guests if they were pleased with this unique opportunity, which might one day save their lives. Then she invited everyone to immerse themselves in the melodies of the music. The girl froze in place, and her companion began to say that she did not really like being in a large crowd. Hearing this, the ruler of the throne looked at them with surprise. She thought that she did not have to be at the festival at all, and looked attentively at the young artist. She said that she wanted to take the musicians with her on the ship. The spectators settled comfortably and listened to the melody, while at the same time understanding how strong the power and influence of wealthy people can be. The young man could not believe his eyes, everything happening around amazed and fascinated him at the same time. But then the people who had gathered together said that it was already time to return back to their tent. When she came closer, she asked why they did not want to stay here for the night. The little bear immediately became serious and said that their house was much bigger and nicer than this place. His friend tried to calm the boy down, saying that everything was under control and there was nothing to worry about. The monarch smiled and said that she really wanted to see this tent with her own eyes. At that moment, the ship slowly took off into the sky. The boy fully enjoyed everything happening around and took real pleasure in every minute. The alarm was raised to the 3rd level, and the ruler of the thrones immediately went to the command center to find out what was going on. Frightened, she shouted loudly and ran through the long corridors, leaving behind her friends who stayed to wait for news. She focused, opened the door, and entered the cabin. Her friends quietly stood behind, carefully watching everything that was happening. The queen asked what had happened, and she was explained that a mysterious castle suddenly appeared, which aroused suspicion in everyone. Thinking, she placed her hands on the door, turned to the boy, and began sharing with him what was happening now. He smiled and, laughing, said the castle he had just told about was actually their tent. The owner of the throne was very surprised by what she heard. It really shocked her. As soon as everyone learned the news, the alarm was immediately canceled. They thanked for the help in transport, and the queen replied that she is always happy to help others. Arriving at the castle, she was impressed by its grandeur and could not contain her admiration. The ruler announced that something very important would happen here tomorrow. The young man enthusiastically agreed with the news. They crossed the threshold and found themselves inside the House of Ghosts. The friends bravely entered the castle. Everyone admired the richness of the shelves and the unusual architecture, which gave the castle a truly special appearance. The conversation quickly became lively, and everyone began discussing what awaited this house ahead. The young man then suggested, if desired, they could stay here a little longer. One day, the Lord of the Throne decided to walk through the entire castle, as he was curious to see every corner of his domain. A real bustle had already begun in the castle. The Viscount thoughtfully ran his fingers along the edge of the glass, pondering when he would finally manage to find those who completed the task. Suddenly someone called him, and turning around, he saw a stranger in an elegant tuxedo. A conversation immediately started between them. The stranger smiled mysteriously, as if hiding some secret. Upon parting, he said he wanted to introduce the Viscount to the princess. At that moment, the Count noticed how the girls nearby were lively discussing him, and this news brought a smile to his face. He hoped to hear something good about himself. But later it became clear that the conversation was not at all about what he had hoped for. Angered, he struck the table hard with his fists and shouted that they still had not found the mage who had gone out of control, and because of whom the alarm signal was triggered. The Viscount was suddenly gripped by genuine horror, and the boy nearby only sighed with pity, showing sympathy. The Count got angry, began shouting and swearing, warning that if the problem was not solved immediately, it would lead to serious consequences. Meanwhile, the young man wondered where that boy could be now. He imagined him sitting on a bench, thoughtfully immersed in his thoughts. He was confused and could not decide what to do next. But suddenly, an unexpected idea came to him, and he immediately set off for the Academy of Mages. It was in this very place that a powerful sorceress awaited him. The young man handed her papers with materials about the missing person. She took them in her hands with surprise, because the name was well known to her. The enchantress admitted that she was acquainted with Ix, and, addressing him with respect, called him Sir. This so surprised her young companion that he could not hide his astonishment. She suddenly realized that she only knew one fragment of his character, and behind this mask hid much more that she did not know. Having released her owl, she loudly announced to everyone the start of the search across the entire planet and reported that he had been spotted in Mistamar. The boy said that there had been no reports of border violations in this area, so he saw no reason to consider it possible. She said that the great mage only mocks those who seek him and skillfully keeps everyone in his hands. Hearing these words, the young man realized that the missing man was actually good at manipulating people. He knows perfectly well where the boy is hiding and will definitely inform others about it. It was then that a huge dragon appeared in the sky above the port city, and a rider sat on its back. As soon as he approached the stranger sitting on the dragon's back, the stranger immediately noticed the rider. Feeling danger, the stranger became alert. The stranger shouted loudly, demanding an explanation of what was happening, but the knight confidently said he had finally met the one he had been looking for so long. He was convinced that before him stood X-Rage, so he immediately attacked him with his fists, but he was mistaken. Meanwhile, in one of the city districts, a girl was walking with her mother. Suddenly, something amazing caught her attention. Small toy rabbits were scattered all over the sidewalk. People gathered in a small square, watching with admiration as craftsmen skillfully created toy bunnies with their skilled hands. At that moment, the hero was talking when suddenly another character approached him and extended a hat jingling with coins. He said it was a reward from the spectators who wanted to thank them. The man expressed gratitude to his colleague for taking the initiative into her own hands, but she replied that people were independently throwing coins. They said that rabbits would be given to the one who tells something important about X and the girl with the plush teddy bear. People began to feverishly search for any information, as the desire to get this unique toy was extremely strong. The plush rabbit quietly dreamed that he would be found quickly as soon as he arrived in Shipton, because it seemed to him that everything here was too simple and obvious. However, all their efforts were in vain. They could not find those they were looking for. Meanwhile, an important event was unfolding in the palace. Luca and Amin stood together. Suddenly, the boy asked to be left alone. The queen smiled and said that it seemed she was about to fall, probably because X approached her first. X calmly explained in response that he only wanted to make space for Ryuki. She smiled and said that she was fine, and she really liked this castle. She thought for a moment, then asked if the next participant had already appeared. At that moment, the door slowly opened. At that moment, several mysterious figures quietly entered the room. The heroes looked intently at the strangers, and suddenly one of them, smiling, admitted that he had long dreamed of X's autograph. Soon he realized that among them was a boy who had been used as bait. The stranger introduced himself as Urikar, king of the slums, who was tasked with returning X. He offered the boy to go with him, but warned, if he refused, big trouble awaited him. Diving into his thoughts, the boy realized that he should not put others at risk. He firmly stood up and loudly declared that he was setting off alone, leaving Ryuk behind. X addresses everyone and asks, "Please, do not touch anyone, harm only me." Rikar smiled and confidently promised that he would keep the promise. Ryuka took the boy by the hand and spoke to him, but in response saw only his smile. Without saying goodbye, he simply walked away, and the girl stood still, watching him with tears in her eyes. The queen addressed the man and asked why they were taking the boy. The man explained that he was promised a reward in gold if he caught those who committed such offenses. She suddenly offered him a job, which greatly surprised the man. She calmly looked and handed over 5 gold coins. Erukar's colleague, seeing that the coins were real, could not hold back and laughed. The lucky one agreed to work for Lady Ammon. He entrusted the boy with guarding the rye crops. The door slammed loudly, and the queen smiled with relief. She was glad that she managed to settle this matter. Meanwhile, the main heroine, all in tears, rushed to him. He sincerely apologized to her for making her worry, thanked the queen, and promised to repay the debt soon. The girl hugged him tightly, and he gently whispered for her not to cry anymore. She only looked at him sadly and firmly said that he should not joke about her feelings anymore. She confidently looked him in the eyes and promised that she would definitely help. He held her tightly to himself and sincerely thanked her for not turning away from him. He extended his pinky, promising that everything would be fine, and from now on promised to take care of himself. They hooked their pinkies and promised each other that they would always stay together. The soft rabbit quietly whispered that she would never leave him. Reika looked at him with surprise, and the rabbit at that moment straightened his back and smiled contentedly. Ammon shared what she knew about the events and warned that someone was looking for them. She offered them to move to her country where they could be safe. He pondered and sank into his own thoughts, forgetting everything around. He thought about what emptiness is. X thoughtfully looked at the black sphere. Suddenly, as if out of thin air, a small baby appeared before him. He quietly stepped onto the palm of his former companion. The boy realized that he really did not know himself at all. This feeling of emptiness engulfed everything around, and he understood that his recent joy was only a mirage. He looked into the void and asked what it wanted from him and what he should do for it. The void silently listened to the sincere apologies of the young mage, understanding how hard it was for him to ask forgiveness for his past deeds. X promised to fulfill any wish of the void, but did not expect that something would truly surprise him. Suddenly, it joyfully exclaimed that it had long dreamed of a pillow made of slime. The young man gently looked at the baby and gave him a sincere, warm smile. Suddenly, he spoke to Laudith Ryuku, who stood motionless with a calm and composed gaze. The girl asked in surprise what had happened, and her companion calmly explained that they would have to return home the very next day. Yes, she really believed that they would leave, and honestly admitted to herself that she felt sad. She inquired whether she could come here again next year, as she really wanted to keep these memories in her heart. The hero confidently said that returning was possible. At that moment, the queen noticed that the travelers were preparing to set off on their journey the very next day. She promised that her assistant would take down the tent herself. X at that moment recalled that he seemed to have forgotten to return something to her. She was genuinely surprised, and her face immediately filled with joy. The queen asked everyone to give 5 gold coins each. The young man looked at her in surprise. He asked if she was really sure about her choice. In response, she wondered what they would do with those who followed them. He began to tell her about his plan and mentioned the Viscount in the process. The stern woman, not mincing her words, expressed her dissatisfaction to the man and said that, just in case, she would give the boys a ride herself. She honestly admitted that she could not promise them safety, but immediately noted that she would do everything possible to help them. He expressed his gratitude to her, and at that moment the girls silently froze in place. The plush rabbit timidly asked if they could ride in the queen's carriage, but the boys decided that first they needed to think everything through properly. The Viscount, smiling joyfully, greeted the ruler who sat on the throne. She asked how he was doing, and meanwhile behind her quietly stood X and Ryuka. The man from a noble family turned around and unexpectedly caught the gaze of the young mage. The aristocrat addressed the potential employee and offered him a job, promising to pay 3 gold coins. But he immediately noticed that the boy looked dissatisfied. The boy confidently said that he would never become a servant of such a master. The nobleman was stunned by such a decisive and unconditional refusal. At that moment, the lady of the throne reminded him that the boy was already one of the temple's servants. She confidently said that she would not allow anyone to harm him, and her words made a great impression on the aristocrat. The young man was about to reply, but at that moment another boy interrupted him. The new interlocutor spoke calmly but insistently, asking to be heard. The ruler listened attentively and seriously, without interrupting. He enthusiastically shared his love for wine and promised that one day he would definitely create his own wine cellar for her. Then, turning to the aristocrat, he sharply ordered him to be silent. Hearing these words, the lady sincerely rejoiced and decided to give the sorcerer the opportunity to be alone with the girl. When they were leaving, the faces of the nobles clearly showed dissatisfaction. When he was climbing the stairs, he loudly shouted that the boy would still regret what he had done. The mage himself rejected the proposal, and everyone rejoiced at this, for the master of the city himself took their side. The girl emphasized that it was his actions that became key in this situation, and suggested going with her. He looked at her and, later nodding, made it clear that he agreed. But his companion remained steadfastly serious and did not even raise her eyes. They walked along a cozy, peaceful street. When she returned home, her thoughts were full of reflections, but she did not forget to sincerely thank. He said that she should thank him. She suddenly realized that her whole life was a single dream that lived in her heart, the desire to stop time. Closing her eyes, she sincerely believed that something was about to happen that would give her the strength to endure all the trials that awaited ahead. Deep in her heart, she understood for the first time how strongly she loved him. While she was thinking about it, it became clear to her she did not want anyone else to be near him at all. When she opened her eyes, she quietly asked if she had disgraced him with her behavior. The soft toy thought that if it were the boy, it would have long ago run away from such persistence, and the girl, a little angry, simply went on her way. The little animal pretended as if it had heard nothing. Meanwhile, the boy hurried to find a pillow made of slime. The hero, bent over and staying in the shadow of the houses, carefully moved along the quiet street. Near the shop door stood two locals, enthusiastically discussing something between themselves. Almost reaching the edge of the street, he suddenly heard one of the locals offer a reward, a whole silver coin to whoever finds his hiding place. This message caught him by surprise, and he stopped, then turned around to see what was happening. Hearing someone say his name, Axe stopped and froze. For a moment, confusion appeared on his face. He was trying to understand who called him and why. However, soon Axe gathered his thoughts, took a deep breath, and calmly continued on his way. Having moved to a safe distance from the inquisitive townspeople, Axe finally stopped and delved into his thoughts. He began to wonder why someone might be pursuing him. Axe was sure that the Viscount could not come to terms with his refusal. He believed that everyone ignored him. Such a modest appearance and simple clothing allowed him to remain unnoticed in the crowd. X was climbing the creaky stairs to the second floor when he suddenly came across two guards who looked at him suspiciously. One of the guards, a woman, was carefully examining an official document, holding it in her hands. X did not even have time to understand what was happening when he was already grabbed. The guards shouted at him, and the woman standing nearby said in a cold voice that escape was pointless. They were ordered to take him directly to the Viscount. Axe hung in the air and tried to convince the guards that he had already met with the Vigraf, and all misunderstandings were resolved. But the guards did not believe his words. They held Axe tightly and did not even think about letting him go. Behind the slightly ajar door of one of the rooms, the maid carefully watched the events. When she noticed that the guards completely ignored the boy's words, she could not remain indifferent and dared to step forward. The girl stepped out of the shadows, introduced herself, and turning to the guards, asked if their prisoner really owned this tavern. The maid watched the events in confusion but still greeted Axel, calling him an honored guest. He calmly said he had simply returned to his room. KH couldn't even imagine that the ordinary way to his room would become a real ordeal for him. He was so upset. Paradise bowed its head and began persuading the guards, assuring them that the boy was not guilty of anything and incapable of doing anything bad. He tried to speak carefully to confirm the girl's words, but each time he stopped and fell silent. Because of these long pauses, his answers never reached the guards. The words dissolved into silence. Tears appeared in the boy's eyes, and, barely holding back despair, he admitted that he was no longer able to work. The guards were truly bewildered. They could not believe they were catching someone just because this person simply refused to work. The guards stepped aside confusedly to discuss their next actions. X, wiping away tears, stayed close to Rai, who stood by the door ready to protect the mistress. He wiped the remnants of tears from his cheeks and looked at the guards with hopeful eyes, believing that the troubles were over and the time had come when he would finally be allowed into the hotel. No matter how hard the boy tried to explain something, the guards stood their ground. They said they were just doing their job. As soon as the guards grabbed his arm, the hero began to resist wildly, trying to break free from their hands. He shouted loudly that it was not his problem. When the tension reached its peak, a thin chain suddenly slipped quietly from his pocket. A metal object suddenly slipped from his pocket and, softly clinking, rolled across the wooden floor of the second floor. Everyone nearby immediately paid attention to it. One of the guards bent down, picked up the metal fragment from the ground, and began to examine it carefully. The guards were truly surprised. They did not even hide their astonishment and started asking the hero where he got this metal from. In response, he calmly asked to have this precious item returned, explaining that he personally received it from the hands of Queen Min herself. The guard carefully took the medal and studied the engraved name H on it for a long time. He examined every detail attentively, missing nothing important. After making sure that before him was a genuine sacred symbol, confirming the high rank and special status of the owner, the guard finally relaxed his shoulders. The policeman looked ahead tensely, thinking over every detail of the case. He gradually pieced all the puzzle fragments into a single whole, and confidence and respect appeared in his gaze. At that very moment, the guards realized their mistake, hastily dropped to their knees before the young man, bowed deeply, and sincerely began to apologize for their actions. The main hero did not hide his surprise at such a sudden change in their behavior. The orderly guard, returning the medal to its owner and no longer hesitating, said in a calm voice, "The Order of the Viscounts always acts only for their own benefit. They do not care about the true condition of the people." The boy was impressed by what had happened. Barely hiding his excitement, he nodded, confirming the guard's words, and carefully took his medal back. Deep in his soul, he sincerely thanked Queen Ammon for the medal she had given him, for it was thanks to it that he managed to avoid an unjust accusation. The defenders of law and order, realizing their mistake, quickly left the hotel. They apologized to the traveler and promised that now he could safely return home. Behind the hermetic doors of the hotel, all daily worries remained. Inside the room, peace and coziness prevailed. The main character did not hide his joy. He spread his arms, sincerely rejoicing that he had finally returned. Behind him stood Rai, watching this happy moment with a warm smile. Nita suddenly saw them appear and was surprised by what was happening. She stepped out from behind the corner to figure out what had happened. Nitra decided that the easiest way to escape was to jump out the window, but X remained calm, reassured his friend, and promised that from now on everything would be fine. Taking the first step forward, the main character slowly approached the bed. Fatigue was felt, growing stronger with each step. It seemed that an invisible burden lay on his shoulders, and even the slightest movement was difficult. The three stopped by the door, and X and Rai looked forward excitedly, dreaming of the next step. Nitra, who was resting on the bed, raised his head and smiled back at them. The same round pillow that X so desired lay carelessly on the bed, needed by no one. After a day full of adventures, X quietly grabbed the edge of the blanket and carefully pushed it aside. At that very moment, the hero, without undressing, simply lay down on the bed and put the round pillow under his head. Nearby stood a kind maid who wanted to call him, but he was already asleep, and it was too late. He fell asleep so soundly that the heroes did not wake him and quietly left to let him rest peacefully. Suddenly, someone loudly shouted in the Viscount's mansion, and the silence was immediately broken. The girl, comfortably settled in the armchair, calmly says that in winter she needs 120 medium grimoires daily. This is necessary so that she can create a unique grimoire especially for him. A young man in a suit stands by the door and watches as two people talk. The Viscount feels that someone is trying to deceive him. She stops for a second, plunges into thought, and tries to recall the very idea that could turn everything upside down. The girl reaches out her hand to the cylinder, ready to finally carry out her plan. She wants to combine wind and fire, hoping to create something special through the power of these elements. The girl gives a crooked smile in response to such suspicion, assuring that even if the thought had crossed her mind, she would never act that way. But while speaking, she subtly slides the cylinder closer to herself. From the cylinder, where something is evaporating, a rectangular opening is visible. She notices with interest that this device was probably made by Professor X using elemental magic. It was during the experiment that the strange substance appeared. The Viscount solemnly stopped, proudly straightened up, and said that the princess highly appreciated his invention. After that, he asked to reduce the rental fee for this product, promising instead to supply 30 such devices for her. The girl waves her hands in confusion, trying to stop him and ask him to wait a little. The Viscount does not hear her words, as he is completely immersed in his own thoughts. His face brightens. He has just figured out how to reduce the cost of purchases. If the product is ordered in large batches, expenses can be significantly reduced. He first offers her 120 magic stones as payment for the first rental, and next time asks to pay with only 1 stone. Unable to hold back, she immediately assured that she never said anything about renting. The butler, who was calmly standing in the room among others, heard the question and explained. This mysterious stone actually serves as fuel for the created device. The girl understood where the butler was leading and continued his thought herself. She began to explain exactly how these devices are transported. When the Viscount learned that he needed to collect a full 3,600 magic stones, he froze in place. The enormous amount simply stunned him, and for a moment he couldn't utter a single word. His gaze became empty from such shock. In despair he cries out, believing that nothing can be saved anymore. His scream fills the air with pain and hopelessness. People call the Viscount, trying to reach him, but their voices are lost in the void. In another place, the hero wakes up after a strange dream. He slowly opens one eye, still not fully understanding what is happening. He felt better and he did not even remember how he fell asleep. Upon waking, he immediately got up and stretched. First, he stretched out his right hand forward and, without thinking, closed his eyes. Raising his head from the mucus pillow, he realizes, you won't find a more comfortable pillow. Nitra wakes up and sees her older brother in front of her. Behind him stands their smiling younger sister Rai, who gently hugs him by the shoulders. In response, X also greeted them. The main character remembered that Rai had recently met with Yurikar, so he cautiously asked if everything was all right. Rai smiled and replied that nothing special had happened, they just talked. She also recalls that she is familiar with him because he once took care of her when she lived in the slums. The main character pondered about Yurikara and his younger sister. Probably, he did not want to upset her because he had once promised to take care of her. The room became quiet. Everyone was silent. No one spoke a single word. Finally, the hero breaks the silence, smiling and saying that he is very hungry and dreams of shashlik. Friends also gladly smile in response and together head to the kitchen. At the bazaar, among various food stalls, Nitara walks contentedly. She quietly hums to herself and enjoys the shashlik. Sitting together at a table amid the noisy bazaar, the main character gently told the kitten not to worry. He wouldn't take its food, so the little one could eat peacefully. The hero smiles cheerfully, sits at the table, and jokes that he probably can't eat as much as the little kitten. Yet he adds that he would gladly try one shashlik. Those standing aside from Atix suddenly loudly interrupt the idol's speech. They begin to ask questions about the troubles in the forest and express outrage that the situation there is only worsening. 3 men stood near the house and talked about goblins, forest guards, and magical stones. They were worried that the number of goblins in the forest was increasing, and they wanted the forest protection to try harder. The men also sighed because they had almost no fragments of magical stones left. The main character listens carefully to their words and thinks, maybe his protective magic has already ended. However, he finds it hard to believe. At that very moment, the hero grabs his head and tries loudly to drive away all thoughts about work, immediately attracting the attention of the girls. Suddenly, he hears his sister's voice. She is addressing him. Rai thanks the main character from the bottom of his heart for allowing him to stay. Rai separately expresses gratitude for the delicious shashlik. X just wants to understand whether he can manage all the household chores on his own. After hearing everything the girl told him, the boy realized the maid has no home and is looking for a room to rent in a hotel. Then he asked her not to tell anyone about this conversation. Rai suddenly stands up from the table, greatly surprising the main character, and declares that she refuses. She does not want to depend on him so much. The boy was clearly confused and quickly explained that he was worried about them. He said that if they were left homeless, they simply would have nowhere to go. Therefore, he offered them to stay in his room if it would be more convenient for them. She was upset but still quietly asked if it would be a burden or cause inconvenience for him. The hero assures that everything will be fine and tells his friends that it is time to return home. Nita and the main hero are drifting apart day by day. Rai finally finds the strength within herself and decides to become needed and help others. When the main hero entered his hotel room, it became noticeable that the room was divided into separate zones. Niters suggested sharing the bed with the girl. In the corner, there was still a bed with a pillow resembling a slime monster. The maid silently stepped aside. Suddenly, she jumps under the blanket and appears in the main hero's bed, which surprises him greatly. Suddenly, the main hero jumps out of bed, sharply throwing off the blanket as if a new thought had struck him or he realized it was time to do something. The ex, shocked by the girl's words, listens to her carefully and tries to understand what she is talking about. She has already crawled under the blanket, smiles, and says that while she sleeps, she will be able to warm the bed well. After that, she sincerely thanks him for allowing her to stay. At that moment, Nitra, transformed into a cat, jumps onto the bed to her younger sister Rai. They lie together on the main hero's bed, enjoying mutual warmth. At that moment, X looks at them and feels a real whirlwind of emotions. The hero confidently stepped forward, his boots rhythmically thudding on the wooden floor. In the empty room, his footsteps echoed, and this echo seemed especially significant, as if emphasizing the importance of what was happening. His hand slowly reached for the book on the shelf, as if something invisible whispered to choose this one. Perhaps it was intuition or a long-forgotten desire to find answers within it. The room was filled with deep silence, charged with tension and the anticipation of something important. The main character sat on the edge of the bed, on which other characters had just recently rested. X unfolds the book and begins to read, stopping at the second chapter. Here it talks about magic. From the first pages it explains that it uses special elements, and its results are often amazing and sometimes seem illogical. This feature applies to those on whom it does not act. For example, these could be animals or simple magic. For an ordinary person without supernatural abilities, this is already the limit of the possible. Heroes, however, are surprised, as before them is merely a cold, emotionless statement. The hero turns the second chapter, the 12th part, which talks about how real mages should not so easily fall into the trap of the void. However, the book turned out to be so boring that the boys did not notice how they fell asleep right during reading. Suddenly, the hero turns aside, as if something suddenly caught his interest, or he is trying to hear some barely audible sound. X slowly closes the book in his hands, as if he has just understood something extremely important or reached an important conclusion. The main character is already completely exhausted and barely standing on his feet. He silently bows his head, turns away, and thinks of only one thing: to rest a little and sleep. The boys lay calmly together on the bed, hugging each other. They were warmed by a soft blanket, and somewhere in the corner of the bed lay a lonely slime pillow. The administrator appears in the corridor and notices the main character. An administrator is on duty behind the counter, and opposite stands X. The administrator asks if he is going somewhere, but X says he wants to rent another room. Unfortunately, the hotel had no vacant rooms left. However, the man with the mustache offered one more option: a room in the attic. He handed over the key, and the main character hesitantly took it, clutching it in his hand. He quietly climbs up the old, creaky stairs leading to the attic. The attic was cluttered and covered with dust, but he even liked it. It was cheaper than other rooms, so he quickly learned to manage on his own here. The room contained a bed, a table, and an old dusty bottle. The hero gathered his thoughts, concentrated all his strength within himself, and began to cast a spell. Suddenly, the attic changes before his eyes. It becomes bright and clean around, dust and darkness disappear, and everything fills with a sense of lightness. X reaches for his robe and begins to unbutton the buttons. He lay on the bed, spreading his arms to the sides. Only his legs remained bent at the knees and touching the floor. He lay down fully clothed, and the book stayed near her hand. The main hero woke up and completely forgot what he was talking about with Rai. Instead of the right words, he said something wrong to her, so now he really hopes she won't remember it. Pages of the book quickly flipped before his eyes. It was written there that beastmen are distinguished by great physical strength, while magically gifted aristocrats are more often ill, but among them, the most talented can overcome even the inner emptiness. The girl is reading a book, and little X is standing in front of her. She says that the author of this book wrote it driven by envy and prejudice. The protagonist lies on the bed with a slight smile. He feels that many changes have already happened in his life. Since the lady took him in, he has changed a lot and learned much. But now he cannot allow himself to leave Ryan Nito in trouble. His thoughts are suddenly interrupted. The main hero lies with his eyes closed, fully immersed in calm thoughts and rest. X wraps himself in a warm blanket and thoughtfully looks out the window, through which a bright star appears. He thinks aloud, tomorrow awaits a new life, so today it is worth going to bed earlier. X lay on the bed, motionless, and thoughtfully stared at the white ceiling. Deep down, he was well aware that there was no point in continuing to spend money on renting someone else's housing. X, Rai, and Nitra flew forward, completely absorbed in adventures together. The kitten, as always, was ahead of everyone. A young manager from a famous real estate agency came out to meet them. She greeted the guests kindly and asked how she could help. X enthusiastically told how he had managed to achieve a recent victory and dreamed of buying his own house as soon as possible. He constantly thought about how life is full of surprises, and buying his own house could become one of the brightest adventures. Long ago, he decided that he wanted to buy a house with those very gold coins that the wise Master Ammon had once given him. The manager politely inquired how much money they had. X smiled and replied that he had as many as 5 gold coins. Hearing such an unexpected answer, the girl barely smiled. The budget proposal was quite different from what she had encountered before when working with clients. She looked carefully at the boy, realizing that with such a small amount it would be difficult to find housing. But X remained calm and assured her that he had no special wishes. He tilted his head slightly to the side, still smiling, and pondered how his magical powers could transform any house. The administrator in a strict business suit smiled and informed the visitors that she could now show them the best house offers. Her delicate hand with a neat manicure confidently pointed to an unusual building that everyone knew as the Rock House. The youth looked at the front part of the house with curiosity, not understanding why the word rock was present in its name. The administrator smiled, opened the large door, and with a welcoming gesture of the hand, invited the guests to enter inside this special house. As soon as they stepped over the threshold, they immediately froze in amazement. The interior was so beautiful that it took their breath away. Their surprise grew even stronger when one of them suddenly opened his mouth, then hastily covered it with his hand, trying to hide his emotions. Raising their eyes, they finally saw what had impressed them so much. The ceiling before them looked exactly like a real rock, as if it were part of the wild nature. They were told that before them was a unique design project, conceived under the influence of natural rock forms. When the guests heard that the bedroom was made on the third floor, one of them doubted whether it would really be comfortable there. After careful inspection, he realized that this unusual house did not fit his ideas of a perfect home at all. What scared him was not even the height, but the very idea, which seemed too strange and unusual. Next, they headed to the city slums, a neglected district where narrow streets and neglected houses created a completely different mood, unlike the cozy and clean neighborhoods they had passed earlier. The female administrator, making a wide gesture with her hand, suggested they follow her to an inconspicuous building. At first glance, this place looked more like an abandoned warehouse than a dwelling where someone could live. What they saw before them resembled ruins more than someone's house. The walls were collapsed, pieces of brick lay everywhere, and the roof had long been gone. All this reminded of abandoned, ruined housing. When she saw that the guests looked confused, she awkwardly said that the house was designed in an open space style, but this explanation only raised more questions. At that moment, their little friend froze, hearing a strange noise. His ears first perked up alertly, then pressed tightly to his head, as if he sensed something bad and was ready to defend himself. He decisively jumped forward, shielding his mentor and preparing for any danger. His fur stood on end, and his tail tensed and puffed up. He reacted almost instantly, catching the stone flying at him with his bare hand, surprising everyone with his speed and agility. The owner, worried about his friend's safety, quickly asked if he was hurt while catching the dangerous projectile. Suddenly, 3 locals emerged from behind the ruins. Seeing strangers, they thought they were enemies and started making noise, threatening with sticks and angrily ordering them to leave their land immediately. The visitors hurried to clarify the situation. They quickly explained that they were just inspecting the house and had no ill intentions. One of them, a bit nervous, tried to speak as confidently as possible. When the hero realized the real cause of the conflict, he felt genuine remorse and confusion about what had happened. After talking with the locals, it became clear someone could live in this house if it had a roof, but now the place was favored by children. They played and spent time there. When they understood that this option was not suitable for them, they asked to see other houses to find something better for themselves. After thinking for a moment, the administrator slightly furrowed her brow and bit her lower lip. Then she honestly admitted that the proposed house was a bit too expensive for their budget. However, she immediately added that she had another interesting offer for them. Next, they stopped in a quiet and cozy place. When they entered the kitchen, coziness immediately prevailed around, and cleanliness was felt. Inviting the guests into her home, she explained in detail where everything was located. The house had 3 separate rooms, a large kitchen, and a cozy living room. Near the house was a market where one could quickly buy all the necessary things for a comfortable life. The boy could not take his eyes off what was unfolding before him. Images were already forming in his mind of how he would change this place for the better. However, doubts appeared in him. He began to wonder if he would ever manage to buy his own house and live independently without having a stable job. Noticing his anxiety, the administrator approached closer and gently asked with sincere care what had happened and what was troubling the boy. On her open palm lay 3 candies, a quiet symbol of support, hope, and sincere friendship. Lost in thought, the boy pondered whether his soul truly wanted to live in this very house, or if it was just a temporary fascination that would soon disappear. He stood in strange attire, a small hat and a cloak, and in his thoughts he kept replaying one question. Was he ready to buy the house, even if it meant working hard for it? He barely smiled. Probably now the matter was no longer about the house itself, but about an ordinary candy. Having tried the treat, he noted with delight how unexpectedly tasty it was. The sweet taste immediately warmed his soul and seemed to magically dispel all the last doubts that had been tormenting his heart. He smiled warmly, a little embarrassed, and that smile made him even more attractive. He openly admitted that perhaps right now, at this special moment in his life, he really needed this house. He finally overcame his insecurity and shyness, approached the administrator, and politely, though slightly nervously, asked for a little more time for a very important conversation. She was genuinely surprised when he unexpectedly addressed her with a request and openly showed her reaction. Under her attentive gaze, he became confused, felt awkward, and lowered his eyes, embarrassed. In his eyes was read the most cherished desire he had carried in his heart all his life. Finally, gathering his courage, he spoke it aloud, overcoming all fears and doubts. Gathering all his courage, he took a deep breath of fresh air, as if he was about to take a step that would change his entire life. He confidently raised his head and, showing both courage and a bit of nervousness in his eyes, said seriously, "He wants to buy a house." The administrator was very pleased to hear about the purchase. He sincerely thanked the future owner for making such a decision. While they were going to sign the important agreement, their little fluffy friend only looked around confusedly meowing, not understanding what was happening. In the bright hall of the real estate agency, there was a lively atmosphere. A former employee and the administrator were actively discussing the news. The woman, shining with happiness, warmly congratulated the young man on finding a nice home. Suddenly his gaze seemed drawn to a distant corner of the room, as if something invisible was calling him. Someone there moved restlessly. The young man froze in place and could not take his eyes off that figure. In a luxurious room with tapestries and antique furniture, a young girl sat quietly. The girl gracefully rose from her seat. On her head shone an exquisite crown generously decorated with precious stones. She calmly said that she had been waiting for him. Without hesitation, he waved his hand friendly at the stranger, as if he had known her for a long time. But suddenly, the administrator turned pale and exclaimed that before them was Princess Lula herself. Although the news was shocking, the young man still smiled at the girl, as if they had known each other for a long time and were happy to see each other again. The princess gracefully stood up from her seat, and at that moment the young man realized before him was not just a girl, but a true ruler. He grabbed his head and began to reproach himself, realizing that he looked ridiculous before the princess. In his thoughts, he was angry at himself because he had truly behaved like a fool. She carefully observed his emotions, and her faithful servant politely offered her his hand. At that moment, the young man noticed how elegantly she accepted this help. He was so confused by the situation that he couldn't bear the tension and shouted loudly. Everything around seemed confusing and incomprehensible to him. To everyone's surprise, the princess admitted that she had seen his past. Her voice carried sincere sorrow as she shared what she had learned. She bowed low and sincerely apologized, which greatly surprised everyone around. Her movements were so graceful and noble that everyone in the hall froze, holding their breath. X could not believe his own eyes. The princess bowed her head and apologized to him. The butler standing nearby cast an angry and attentive look at the young man, clearly showing that he did not like what was happening. The young man, gathering all his courage, dared to contradict the princess, asserting that she should not humiliate herself before him like that. She calmly looked him in the eyes and gently said that there was nothing to worry about. The butler, barely hiding his disappointment, turned away from the princess. His eyes spoke. He did not like her behavior at all. X, a little nervous and stumbling over his words, sincerely thanked her for the support, but quickly assured that he was fine. The princess looked at him with surprise, trying to understand why he looked so confused. The young man smiled warmly at her and sincerely thanked her for not being offended by him. The girl did not take her eyes off him. Her mysterious smile hinted that she was about to reveal some special secret. At that moment, X realized he was in trouble. He felt embarrassed under the attentive gazes of the people around, and he had no idea how to approach and talk to the girl. She was genuinely surprised to hear this question, and her look showed confusion. The princess paused for a moment, choosing words for an answer that seemed absolutely obvious to her. She stepped closer and gently took the boy's hand. Her touch was soft but firm. Lula smiled and said that he could consider her a true friend and address her as a close person. At that moment, the princess decisively turned to her devoted maid and said that it was time to announce their decision. With a serious expression, he carefully began to speak, understanding the importance of the moment. The butler announced that His Majesty, to express deep gratitude for the young man's work, had decided together with him to gift the boy any house of his choice. The young man was so surprised and touched by the attention that he could not find words. His voice trembled with emotion as he timidly said that this gift was too generous for him and that he was not worthy of such an honor. When asked which house he would like to live in, the boy answered very simply, any budget housing was enough for him. The most important thing was that it was cozy and that he could enjoy every day. The princess, accompanied by her retinue, joyfully told that they had managed to find a wonderful solution. She smiled sincerely and announced that a luxurious house had already been prepared for him, and he only needed to pay 1 coin for it. X smiled sincerely, watching them. Everything around seemed to him like a real fairy tale, hard to imagine in reality. His feet seemed glued to the patterned floor as a new page of life unfolded before his eyes. Before them rose a real palace, a majestic mansion that impressed with its size and luxury. The princess gracefully pointed her hand at the majestic building, and a cunning spark appeared in her eyes. She winked at the young man as if she wanted to share his sincere joy. Renshin and Nitro stood shoulder to shoulder, carefully looking at their new home. Until recently, their future seemed restless and unclear, but now, as this majestic house looked at them, everything fell into place. From now on, this luxurious estate was theirs. Climbing the wide stone stairs of the old mansion, X looked around in surprise and thought that such a luxurious house must have a high price. When the princess shared her story about that house, a smile appeared on her face and a quiet laugh sounded in her voice because it all seemed extremely funny. Lulis added that the house was once given away for just 1 coin. The hero pondered, if the only flaw in this house exists, then he himself is not worthy of such a wonderful dwelling. In search of an answer, he mentally turned to the void, the very one that was always beside him at the most unexpected moments. At that moment, a small dark pit suddenly appeared from under X's cloak. X was so amazed by what he saw that he froze in place, as if turned to stone by surprise. His heart beat faster when a strange void resembling a little spirit began to appear before him, and with each moment it became more noticeable. The void took a few uncertain steps on its tiny legs and ended up on the ground. At that moment, it looked very cute and completely defenseless. As soon as the guards noticed the strange creature, they became alert, surrounded the group, and decisively declared that they had a duty to protect the princess. Rai and Nitra stood behind the guards and tried to calm them, convincing them that the little void posed no threat and would cause no harm. X noticed that the little one had become so real that now everyone around could see it. This deeply impressed X and even frightened him a little. He realized their magical bond was becoming stronger, and with it, serious changes could come that he had not considered before. He and the emptiness looked at each other for a long time, as if they were talking without words, conveying their deep feelings only through glances. The hero realized with excitement that he had already reached the 3rd level of magic. The infant was slowly gaining strength and becoming more powerful, and the creature looked at him with big gentle eyes, as if it wanted to tell something without words. He understood if this creature completely took over his body and awakened in this world, he risked turning into the king of demons, becoming a true devil, or ending up in lonely isolation. What fate awaited such people, no one knew. They had to leave their homes and leave the settlement. What would happen next remained a mystery. It was this uncertainty that scared X just as much as the changes themselves. The butler stood straight, showing no emotions, and very politely asked for permission to see the infant. Zinvoid and his companion met eyes for a moment. Anxiety flashed in their eyes, but in a moment it changed to confident determination to act. Without hesitation for a second, the butler took out a special device resembling an old-fashioned camera that could read desires. The hero looked at the butler puzzled when suddenly a sheet with a written desire flew out of the machine. The butler carefully reread the note, and his face remained serious as he tried to understand what exactly the demons had planned. The princess watched attentively what was happening. At first, she was a little upset and furrowed her brow, but then she could not hold back a smile. Her laughter spread over the courtyard, pure and ringing like bells, making everyone turn to look at her. Lula began wiping away tears that appeared from laughter. It seemed to her that what was written in the note was extremely funny. Dvoretsky, a little confused by the princess's behavior, humbly bowed his head and politely apologized, as if he thought he himself was the cause of her laughter. X exhaled with relief and only now realized that everything had gone successfully, so he barely smiled to himself. He looked again at Little Void, who stood with his arms crossed on his chest and watched him sadly. Smiling at his friend, he confidently nodded his head, once again confirming their decision. As soon as Void heard these words, he seemed to come alive. He instantly jumped up, feeling a new surge of energy. He joyfully began to run and jump, celebrating another victory. X turned to Ryan and Nitra and suggested going inside the house. This invitation greatly pleased his friends. While the friends were climbing the stairs, the princess and the Dvoretsky approached X. They offered to help if she needed support. Gratefully agreeing to their offer, he watched as the girl and the Dvoretsky prepared to leave. The girl said a warm goodbye, saying she very much hoped to see them again soon. When everyone was seated in the carriage, the princess once again gently thanked Axu for his kindness and help. Axu stayed on the porch, waving to them for a long time and keeping every moment of this farewell in his heart. The carriage slowly traveled along the road, taking the princess and the Dvoretsky further away from the famous estate. The princess comfortably settled on the soft cushions in the carriage and could not take her eyes off the Dvoretsky. The butler, who was sitting opposite, looked intently at the princess, closely watching her every move. Unable to endure the prolonged silence, the butler timidly addressed the princess and asked if she had accidentally remembered something funny. The princess, with a joyful smile, told him what had amused her. It turned out that in the mysterious note he had seen earlier, there was a very simple wish of the demon, just to have a home of his own. The girl, almost on the verge of tears, begged the master to take her for a real maid's job. He smiled gently and told her that everything was going as well as possible. The girl immediately noticed how spacious the new estate was and told the master that she was always happy to help with cleaning. She emphasized once again that the house was indeed very large. He sank into thought, recalling how he once searched for a home so that the three of them could live together. He thought that this would make her happy and relieve her anxiety. However, this never happened. The girl stood silently before him, holding her hands folded in prayer, and he watched her, deep in thought. Perhaps everything would have been easier if she had stayed and helped with the household. He did not object to such an idea. When she heard that he agreed, her face immediately filled with joy. The girl could not contain her happiness. She joyfully jumped, filled with happiness and excitement. The teacher looked at her, smiling gently, and calmly continued his story, observing her sincere reaction. X did not stop talking, but suddenly took and threw a handful of coins at her feet. He said that this money would last her a long time, for several years. She was simply stunned by such unexpected generosity. Meanwhile, X calmly asked her to go and buy some food. The girl was stunned with surprise as soon as she noticed the gold coin. The master noticed her reaction and immediately asked what reward she would like to have, but the girl firmly said that she did not need any money for her work. The master smiled kindly, slyly wagged his finger as if joking, and assured that if she ever needed anything, she could always turn to him. She only smiled in response, gently, with a hint of mystery. From that smile, the owner immediately understood. This girl most likely would never ask him for help, even if she needed it. The hero declared that the matter was settled, then paused for a moment, looking into the distance. He began to wonder where Nitra and Void had gone, and suddenly it seemed to him that a familiar voice came from beyond the horizon. He opened the door and finally saw those who had disappeared. The people stood completely captivated by something strange, not even paying attention to his words. They, as if enchanted, continued to look ahead attentively. The hero thought that everyone had gathered in the kitchen and was admiring his new invention, the endless pitcher of water. Everyone was so absorbed in studying this amazing thing that they did not notice when he quietly entered the room. The kitchen was like a beehive. Everyone was bustling, and life was thriving at every step. The boy suddenly guessed that it was probably Void who used magic. As if sensing his thoughts, Void looked back and glanced at him with a joyful smile, as if proud of his magical talent. The Void ran up to the heroes with excitement, and unable to contain his joy, urged them to loudly and continuously praise him. X knelt before the little Void and sincerely thanked him for his charm. In response, the boy smiled joyfully from ear to ear. The maid gently stroked the child's head and smiled warmly, praising him for how wonderful he was. The child laughed joyfully in response. While Void enjoyed the attention and sincerely delighted in the compliments, X watched him closely with hints of anxiety. He pondered how important it was not to let these praises affect the boy and not allow them to go to his head. The hero loudly clapped his hands to get everyone's attention and confidently said that it was time to finish the move. The character strictly ordered little Void to return to him immediately and forbade even thinking about going outside, which greatly surprised Little and immediately made his face serious. The hero spread his arms to full height, and the Void carefully slipped under his spacious cloak. He gently apologized to the boy, and with a smile assured him that they would still have a chance to play together. X noticed that they needed a futon. Rai immediately assured everyone not to worry, as she knew well where to buy one. She also offered to take them to that store right away. Finally, after a long journey, they reached the place they had longed for so much. Everyone was sincerely happy and filled with joy. In the center of the exhibition hall stood a confused buyer. He admitted that he could not decide which model to choose. The consultant nearby suggested that he try each of the models to determine for himself which one was the most comfortable for him. He lay down on the bed, wrapped himself in a blanket, and joyfully felt how soft and cozy the footrest under his feet was. Hearing how KH admired the futon and called it perfect, Rai lit up with joy. However, upon learning the price, which far exceeded her means, the girl immediately became discouraged. She took a deep breath, then advised the client to first examine and try other futons at the exhibition to make sure which one suits best before making a final decision. The boy took the futon in his hands, looked carefully at Rai, and after a brief reflection agreed to her proposal, saying that fine, he would do it. After carefully examining all the futons, they realized that choosing just one from such a large selection was not an easy and quite exhausting task. The hero sincerely thanked Nitri, warmly smiling and speaking words of gratitude. Then he gladly offered to help carry the things and the chosen futon, showing that he wanted to be helpful. The main character shared that he had already gone through the entire house and now felt very tired. At that moment, an empty glow burst from under his cloak, and he announced, "The time to start the game has come." The hero had to refuse to play with Porozhnecha, explaining that now was not the time for fun and everything should be postponed. Porozhnecha got angry at such a refusal, and offended, said that now he would play alone. Meanwhile, outside the window the moon was already shining brightly, and in the house there was silence, gently illuminated by soft light. He walked slowly around his house, sometimes creating balloons that hung in the air and cast strange shadows on the walls. The hero waved his hand, and a bright ice sphere immediately appeared in the air. Magic obediently fulfilled his wish, creating a transparent icy masterpiece before him. The sorcerer did not stop. He was casting his spell, and his face shone with joy. In his thoughts, he repeatedly recalled how he was called a wizard, and this gave him inspiration. Emptiness slowly approached the wall where paintings hung. He took one down, carefully turned it over in his hands, and examined it closely from all sides. The void behaved calmly and confidently, showing no sign of concern at all. Suddenly someone lightly touched the shoulder of the sleeping Jita, and she instantly woke up, catching sight of Nita. Seeing who had awakened her, the girl quickly looked around. A mysterious smile appeared on his face. He mysteriously said that she should immediately see what happened, as something extraordinary had occurred. His voice sounded so intriguing that a genuine curiosity and exciting anticipation awakened in her. Ray still had not fully woken up. Her eyes were sleepy, and her heavy eyelids barely lifted. Nitrous slowly reached for the door handle and carefully turned it. The door creaked quietly as it opened. The girl froze in place, eyes wide open in surprise, and for a moment even forgot how to breathe. She froze on the threshold, covering her mouth with her palm in surprise. Ray silently watched her, pondering how these paintings could hang in the air without any support. He was filled with both confusion and admiration at the same time. Nitra nimbly jumped up like a skilled acrobat and instantly found himself on the painting that hung in the air and barely floated. His face brightened with a mischievous smile, and he cheerfully invited Ray to join this unusual journey in the air. The girl screamed in fear when she saw her friend boldly jumping from one burning painting to another. Nitra, standing at the very edge of the painting, was performing complex pirouettes. Rai watched this in horror, closed his eyes, and begged his friend to be more careful. At first she loudly protested, shouting that it was not allowed to do so, that it was some nonsense. But then her angry shouts turned into laughter, and her face lit up with a genuine, warm smile. Over time, the girl gradually forgot her fear, and in its place curiosity and a desire to dive into this unusual matter together with the boy appeared. At that moment, their attention was drawn by a stranger who suddenly appeared as if out of nowhere. Void stood aside, watching them intently, his gaze filled with curiosity and mystery, as if observing something unusual. Nitra immediately noticed the strange figure and decided that it was the hand of the void that created this magical space where paintings floated in the air, and the child stood still and smiled mysteriously. Paradise gently spoke to the little one, praising him and saying that he was truly wonderful and talented. The hero supported her, adding that their mysterious friend was really very cool. Hearing this, Emptiness could not help but smile. The hero was still smiling and took a juicy apple out of his pocket. The girl, noticing this, gently hugged the kitten and praised it for being obedient. This made the surroundings even cozier and warmer. Paradise was happily walking through the house with friends, her face shining with joy. Suddenly she stopped, took a juicy apple, and offered to give it to the host to thank him. Rhea took some shiny object out of her pocket, carefully twirled it in her hands, and without taking her eyes off it, began to speak. She pulled a small shiny knife out of her pocket, twirled it between her fingers, and said it was easier to cut the apple into pieces that way, then it would be simpler to eat. Ray slowly peeled the apple, leisurely running the knife over the skin. She said that after this everyone would need to change clothes. Hearing this, the kitten got very scared. It turned pale with fear and angrily swatted Ray's hand away. The gentleman was sound asleep, sprawled out on the large bed and occupying almost its entire surface. A sudden knock on the door shattered the silence of the room, echoing off the walls. It happened so unexpectedly, like thunder striking in a clear sky, but the gentleman who was sound asleep continued to snore peacefully, unresponsive to the noise. The little kitten and the girl quietly entered the room, carrying breakfast on a tray for the man who was still sleeping. Ray carefully held the delicious food in her hands, quietly greeted him, and gently knelt down, holding a bread knife. Ray carefully lifted the lid from the tray, and the host froze in surprise. On the tray lay an apple, sliced into even thin pieces. X could not hold back a smile when he saw the beautifully decorated apple. He was sincerely impressed by the chef's skill, and he warmly thought about how touching and sweet it was. He smiled broadly, sincerely thanking each of those present for the unexpected and pleasant surprise. The hero eagerly savored every piece of the apple, while everyone around smiled joyfully and told how the little helper put in a lot of effort to help prepare this delicious dessert. X slightly tilted his head and smiled warmly. He sincerely thanked Rai, praised her for the excellent work, and from the bottom of his heart expressed gratitude for her efforts. The girl was confused and could not look away. She looked at him with wide-open eyes, as if enchanted, unwilling to miss any of his movements or changes on his face. The girl exclaimed joyfully, her face lit up with a genuine, sincere smile. Out of happiness, she promised that she would continue to work diligently, putting all her energy and strength into her work. The heroine comfortably settled in a cozy spot, holding a cup of tea in one hand and a plate of cookies in the other, calmly breaking off small pieces of the cookies and slowly savoring them. She comfortably settled on the edge of the bed, pulling her legs under herself. She ate the cookie absent-mindedly, almost not tasting it, because all her thoughts revolved around X. The girl involuntarily imagined what he was doing now. Suddenly, the eyes of the soft toy rabbit, which she was unconsciously stroking, shone with a gentle light. Little X, thin and pale, sat on the cold floor. He carefully held a piece of bread in his hands, looking very tired, although he had just turned 10 years old. In the background stood a man with black hair. His face was serious and thoughtful, as if he was pondering something important. Then suddenly he announced that today, for the first time in a long time, maple crabs had appeared. X sharply turned to the familiar voice, and at that moment scenes from the distant past flashed before his eyes. Back then, when his parents became victims of robbers, the boy was taken in by his aunt and uncle. They took care of him and became his family. The uncle, who was sitting by the fire, suddenly sharply turned to X, frowned, and rudely asked why he was staring. He called him a troublemaker, but the aunt, who was nearby, calmly stopped the man. The hero felt sincere gratitude towards both of them. It was unusually quiet around. Only occasionally the silence was pierced by the light rustle of leaves or a solitary bird's song. X sat down on an old fallen tree and thoughtfully looked into the distance, where the sky merges with the forest. One question did not leave him. How could he help these people? A heavy sigh involuntarily escaped from his chest. In his heart, a feeling matured that he owed something to these people. Suddenly he froze, as if he had stumbled upon something amazing. His eyes suddenly opened wide, and his eyebrows rose in surprise. At that moment, an idea flashed through his mind that could overturn all his understanding of events. Before Axe suddenly appeared two strangers who were actively discussing something between themselves. Their conversation concerned some maple crabs, such creatures Axe had never met or even heard of before. Their voices seemed distant, as if sounding through a dense veil of fog. One of the men, frowning gloomily, asked if the forest where these crabs live was really so dangerous. He recalled terrifying stories about people who had died there. The other just waved his hand and assured that these were all made-up scary stories. Hearing the words of the strangers, the hero pondered. He remembered how his uncle had told him that nothing grows in this forest because the forest itself seems to take strength from all living things. Suddenly, the silence was broken by a voice calling a boy by name. He flinched in fear and quickly turned around, feeling his heart wildly beating from fear and anxiety. Feeling awkward, he asked the strangers what they wanted from him. They invited him to join the crab hunt, but warned him not to tell anyone about it. The offer sounded very tempting. The young man pondered about strange maple crabs. He tried to imagine what they looked like and suddenly remembered that they were his uncle's favorite treat. Amazing images arose in his head, and the boy thought more and more about crabs. He remembered how his uncle constantly said that he had never eaten anything tastier than crabs in his life. Now the boy had the opportunity to give him such joy. Gathering courage, he agreed to the stranger's proposal. Together they moved forward, and the outlines of the red forest began to clearly emerge before them. Raising his head, the boy looked around with admiration. The leaves on the trees shone with multicolored shades. He was genuinely surprised, realizing that they had already reached this mysterious red forest. Carefully tearing off one leaf, he brought it close to his eyes and noticed that its shape resembled a palm. It seemed as if nature itself was inspired to create such an unusual coincidence. His friends were clearly nervous, their faces turned pale with fear. It seemed that this forest truly had some mysterious power. It filled hearts with an inexplicable anxiety. One of the boys couldn't stand the tension. He got nervous and started asking how much farther it was to the crabs. He didn't like that the ground underfoot was constantly squelching, making it very hard to walk. The boy, who had much more confidence than everyone else, stepped forward, raised his hand, and pointed to the captivating picture before them. With a joyful smile, he said that this very place was the hideout where they would finally find the crabs they had been searching for so long. His finger pointed at the small maple crabs that were quickly running across the ground. They seemed very busy, like real hardworking workers. Their movements were fast and coordinated, making the scene truly alive. The young man knelt down, eyes wide open in surprise. It was clear that the heroes were determined to catch as many crabs as possible. The air was filled with an exciting anticipation of adventure. X took one of the crabs in his hand and lightly ran his fingers over its shell. He pondered, with such a rich catch, he would probably get his own share. The boys enthusiastically discussed the upcoming crab hunt. Their faces showed genuine joy and impatience. They quickly and skillfully ran between the trees, catching crabs that tried to escape. The start of the hunt was successful. Suddenly, one of the boys sharply pulled back his hand, shouting in fear from the pain. He asked confusedly what had happened. His unexpected reaction immediately alarmed the whole group. Everyone froze, listening to the strange sounds coming from around. One of the boys, trembling with fear, cautiously looked around and quietly muttered, as if trying to calm himself. Probably these are just some very loud flies he had never seen before. He raised his head and true horror was reflected in his eyes. What he saw made his heart beat faster. His face suddenly changed, and his lips dried from tension. Right in front of him flew swarms of huge insects. X was still holding the crab in his hands and could not understand what was happening. He glanced at his friends, and they were shouting fearfully that these were dangerous, spiny reapers, predators about whom scary stories were told. The boys panicked and started to run away, while the hero remained sitting, stunned and bewildered. He did not understand what had happened and why everyone was so scared. The young man thoughtfully looked down, and above his head circled a huge cloud of insects. He was immersed in his thoughts and silent. Suddenly he felt something unusual in the air, raised his gaze, and froze from surprise. What he saw before him made his heart stop for a moment. Seeing dark figures flying in the air, he suddenly remembered the eerie stories about the spiny reapers, dangerous insects whose bites caused terrible pain. Suddenly his gaze stopped on a stranger who suddenly appeared out of thin air. This person's long hair fluttered in the wind, and around their head seemed to glow a strange aura. Unexpectedly, a thunderous explosion sounded around, which for a moment seemed like real thunder. The ground trembled from this roar, and the young man fearfully covered his head with his hands, trying to protect himself at least a little. The young man slowly lowered his hands and widened his eyes in surprise, seeing a stranger before him. Her long blonde hair fluttered in the wind. At that moment, the boy realized that it was this mysterious girl who had helped him. Before the young man stood a mysterious figure, wrapped in clothing with long hair fluttering in the wind. She silently stood with her back to the boy, not even moving. In the semi-darkness, her slender silhouette seemed almost unreal, as if she were a ghost amid the night silence. The stranger turned to the young man, looked him straight in the eyes with gentle care, and calmly, compassionately asked if he was all right and if he was injured. True concern was evident in her gaze. The young man could not take his eyes off her, so captivated was he by her beauty. Impressed, he sincerely admitted that he had never before seen such a charming person. He seemed enchanted by her appearance. He could not tear his eyes away from her. Her fairy tale beauty gave him goosebumps and confused him so much that his head began to buzz, as if hundreds of bees were humming inside. Grateful to the depths of his soul, the boy knelt on one knee and respectfully bowed his head, sincerely thanking his savior for coming to his aid just when it was most needed. Kneeling, he slowly raised his head and looked at her once again. Seeing that he was struggling, the stranger leaned forward slightly. Tender care was felt in her voice. She noticed that his legs were trembling from excitement and asked him not to strain himself too much. She paused for a moment, looked at the boy, and thought, what if he, like a precious diamond, still hides all his true value from everyone? She rested her chin on her slender hand and closely watched his actions, as if wanting to look deep into his soul and learn all his secret thoughts and feelings. The young man was still sitting, not taking his eyes off her. He was confused and could not understand what was happening. Meanwhile, the stranger said that she felt a magical power in him. Perhaps this power was even greater than her own. She pondered and suggested that perhaps his health was not very strong, as often happens with people who have powerful magical abilities. The young man awkwardly looked away and blushed slightly, as if admitting that her guesses were accurate. He really was often ill and could never boast of good health. She tilted her head slightly to the side and listened to him attentively, not interrupting even once. After a brief pause, the stranger looked him in the eyes carefully, took a cautious step forward, and gently said that she had an interesting offer for him, if he didn't mind. The young man looked at her with curiosity. She leaned closer to him and quietly asked if he agreed to move in with her. Barely smiling, she explained that she wanted to help him find his true strength and asked if he wished to become her student. The boy did not look away from her, listening carefully to every word. His heart was pounding faster, and various thoughts swirled in his mind. The stranger looked at him with a slight smile, as if she had long known that he would say yes. Her lips trembled slightly from hidden excitement. He still remained in place, clenching his fists tightly, so tightly that his knuckles turned pale. Something in these words caused him unease. Finally making a decision, he carefully took her hand. With nervousness in his voice, he asked for help to understand the world of magic so that he could achieve his important goals. When he first addressed her, calling her teacher and bowing politely, there was great respect in his voice. In response, she smiled sincerely at him. In that smile there was joy and support for his choice. The stranger gently took his hand and said that she would then wait for him at her home. After that, she warmly asked if everything was all right with his family. The young man looked at her in surprise, not believing his eyes. He asked again if all this was true or if it was not a dream. Inside him flashed a thought. Maybe if he left the family, his uncle and aunt would become happier. She confidently took his hand and said that it was time to set off. The boy, filled with hope, obediently followed her. Suddenly something made him stop. He abruptly froze in place, clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles turned pale, and took a deep breath. She noticed that he suddenly stopped and looked around in surprise. He, gathering courage, asked her to give him a moment. The tired man was slowly climbing the stairs and stopped at the threshold of his home. Sighing deeply, he loudly said that he had returned. It was Uncle Sakura, exhausted after a difficult day, thoughtful and burdened with heavy thoughts. When he entered the house, he was surprised because there was no one in the room. Unusual silence filled the space, and the absence of familiar voices was frightening. He thought he would meet his relatives, but the house looked completely empty, as if no one had lived there for a long time. He quickly looked around the room and, as always, glanced toward the kitchen. There was almost always someone there. For a moment his gaze stopped at that place. Then he thoughtfully shrugged off a heavy bag from his shoulder and carefully placed it on the floor. When he approached the table, his attention was drawn to a plate of crabs. He found it strange because just yesterday they had already eaten crabs, and it seemed they had finished everything then. But these crabs were absolutely fresh, as if they had just been boiled. His eyes caught a small note lying next to the plate. He carefully unfolded it and read warm and sincere words of gratitude for everything he had done for them. It was a short message from Axe. On the sturdy branches of the trees, various little houses were visible everywhere. When they finally reached the place, the stranger proudly pointed to one of the houses and said that it was her home. The young man was surprised because he did not expect to see such a large settlement at all. She gently took the door handle, opened it, and with a light gesture invited the boy to enter the room. She looked attentively at her guest and kindly said that after a long journey, it would not hurt him to freshen up a bit. She carefully placed a bowl in front of him, from which light steam was rising. The warm air made the atmosphere homely and cozy. The delicious smell of the dish quickly spread throughout the room, increasing the appetite. The young man was amazed by the tempting aroma of the dish. The smell literally made his head spin. Taking a deep breath of this incredible fragrance, he sincerely thought that he had never tasted anything so delicious before. Gratitude overwhelmed his heart. He sincerely thanked for the warm reception and could not even find words to fully express his emotions. She looked at him and smiled gently, and from that smile she became even more beautiful. As soon as he made the first piece, his tongue immediately felt an absolutely new, unique taste of this dish. She laughed cheerfully and shared that she is currently trying to cook a dish with maple crab extract. It is an expensive and rare delicacy. He was genuinely surprised and impressed by this, which pleased her greatly, and she smiled again. He smiled and tried the dish. A look of satisfaction immediately appeared on his face. It seemed he had finally uncovered the secret of such an incredible taste. This brought the hero true joy. Tears of joy sparkled in his eyes. He was crying not from pain, but from happiness and admiration. Before him stood a dish so wonderful that it seemed a true miracle, a gift from fate itself. She noticed that her care greatly affected the young man. He listened attentively to everything she said, trying to remember every detail and not miss a single important moment. She carefully placed her hand on the table and said that her name was Alisa. The girl added that she was an elf from a noble family. These words escaped her so unexpectedly that even Alisa herself was surprised. Hearing the teacher's words, the boy was so delighted that a happy smile appeared on his face. From that very moment, the boy became Alice's apprentice, and 5 years have passed since then. During these years, he mastered a lot of new things, and his life was filled with knowledge and exciting discoveries. A ripe, bright red apple hung on the branch, resembling a real precious gem. Suddenly, someone invisible carefully cut it off, and the apple smoothly flew through the air, softly landing on an open palm. Just at the moment when X raised the apple to his lips and was about to bite, Alice suddenly stopped him with a stern tone. reminding him that such behavior was completely inappropriate. Not wanting to continue the unpleasant conversation, he said with relief that he would step away for a short time, still holding the bitten apple in his hand. Alice stood watching as Axe rose into the air, her heart filled with anxiety. She knew his power was growing too fast for such a young person who still had almost no experience. She carefully watched his flight and gradually concluded that he was showing only a small part of his true skills. Behind his easy behavior and youthful enthusiasm lay great strength and considerable potential. She stopped, holding her breath, and looked for a long time where the sky met the earth. Alyssa was walking slowly down the street, thinking about the necessary ingredients and imagining how interesting her new dish would turn out. After a long and difficult flight, he finally felt his tired but still strong legs touch the solid ground. He stood on the top of a high cliff that rose above the endless, empty plain. He had chosen this place deliberately, far from prying eyes. It was convenient to calmly train his magical abilities. The young man, with a confident look, decisively declared that he is starting his journey right now and will become a wizard who will one day surpass his teacher. The hero believed that to achieve his goal, he needed to establish a unique connection with the void, for it is the source of true power. Recalling Alice's words, he suddenly realized she was teaching him not only magic, but also showing how to find the true meaning of life and wisdom in every day. Despite all her warnings, a firm resolve was growing in his soul. He truly wanted to live up to her hopes. He pondered his future. He wanted to grow up and become a real man, was ready to even make a deal with the very void just to accomplish his plan. His determination could not be broken. Suddenly, a strange horned creature appeared before the boy, an old guide between the human world and the void. It looked at him attentively and asked what he really wanted and what he was ready to give in exchange for this deal. X did not even hesitate and immediately answered that he was ready to stake everything without exception. Hearing this, the boy decided to test how serious he really was and simply asked, "Could you give up the most precious thing you have, your life?" The young man immediately, without any doubts, answered yes. Confidence burned in his eyes and his voice sounded strong and resolute. Inside him, anxiety about the unknown was raging, but he skillfully hid his feelings. His eyes looked confident and his posture remained straight. The horned guide looked at the boy attentively and finally said that he had an interesting offer for him. The terms of the deal turned out to be completely unexpected. The man wanted to receive not money as payment, but an excess of talent. From that moment on, his body would no longer be able to change. He would remain young forever. Despite all the serious consequences, X accepted this condition without any doubts.